Sword of Coming Chapter 9-10. Luapa Mountain at the Gate of the Mountain. Chen Lingjun looked around, taking advantage of no outsiders, sneaking out a pot of wine, twisting his wrist, 2 more stacked wine bowls appeared, and tossed to a new janitor across the table. A boy in Xingyi sat opposite a young Taoist priest. One stepped on the bench, the other took off his boots and sat cross-legged. Chen Lingjun leaned forward, stretched his arms, and bumped into the young Taoist priest. The latter drank a large sip of wine and laughed. Empty clothes and empty clothes. Chen Lingjun asked, "Brother Xianwei, don't you feel that you lose face when you watch the door here? If you're not happy, just say something, he'll just transfer you back to Qilong Alley. Anyway, the old chef is good for discussion. In just one sentence. The trivial matter. What silly things, hurry up and punish yourself for a bowl." Xianwei lifted his chin. "What is my character, Brother Jingqing, don't you understand? You can't hide things in your mouth and you can't hide things in your heart. It's just an outspoken person who never compromises. If you don't like staying here. By the side, it's already been rolled back to Qilong Alley." According to Chen Lingjun's statement, Xianwei was considered a child of a handyman from the Katipu in Qilong Lane, and he had been promoted to a child of the outer door of the Luapa Mountain. Even if it was not a step to the sky, it was not too far away. I heard that the first janitor of Luapa Mountain was a guy named Jing Dafeng. After that, Qin Shance's proud disciple Chao Sunny, Liu Beixiang's direct disciple Yuan Lai, and Master Zhou, who was the protector of Luapa Mountain's right, had been having worked here as an errand. If it weren't for the right guard to travel a long distance, this kind of good thing would not be Xianwei's turn. Now this heavy burden fell on Xianwei's shoulders, and of course it was the result of the strong recommendation of Brother Jingqing. In the Chaotu shop in Qilong Alley, without Brother Jia sitting in the town, it would be really meaningless. Coming here, regardless of the world and the world, it would be comfortable. In fact, at the beginning, Xianwei felt bored, but just by accident, Xianwei found a treasure mountain in Jing Dafeng's house. There is no end to learning. Now, let alone the rain and snow, even if there are knives in the sky, Xianwei can stay still at the gate of this mountain. Xianwei was a little bit upset for his brothers. The creation of the next sect is such a big thing, the mountain lord won't call you over? Not waiting for Chen Lingjun to find a reason, Xianwei asked and answered himself, Yes, we must have a backbone on the side of the sect, otherwise the mountain lord must be worried, such a big family business, it is not appropriate to be a thief. No. If I say the wrong thing, I will punish myself for a bowl." Chen Lingjun laughed loudly and raised his wine bowl aloft. "Brothers are united, and it is profitable. If we both look at the door, the master can only put 100 hearts on it." A girl in a pink skirt stood silently on the other side of the steps. Chen Lingjun immediately assumed a hungry tiger leaping against the sheep. He suddenly leaned forward and lay on the table. He stretched out a hand to block the jug in the wine glass, turned sideways, turned his back to the side of the steps and complained loudly, "Xianwei, why are you drinking alcohol? It's not proper. I can't persuade you no matter how you persuade. Let's forget it today. If I do this next time, I will be angry. Brothers belong to brothers. Rules belong to rules. Let's not take this as an example." Xianwei understood, without squinting, with a look of guilt on his face, nodded and said, "I blamed me for being greedy, one didn't control it." Nuanshu reminded, "Uncle Zheng said that the gate of the mountain is the eye of a person. The first impression it gives is very important. Therefore it is best not to drink at ordinary times. If you are really greedy, you should drink less. You can stay in the house. Have a few drinks in the courtyard, and at the same time pay attention to whether there are any guests at the door. When someone is near the gate, quickly get rid of the alcohol before going out to entertain guests, so as not to let the guests from outside the country misunderstand the atmosphere of our lost mountain." While pretending to be listening with ears upright, Chen Lingjun secretly grimaced at Xianwei. Nuanshu didn't even look at the Chen Lingjun and smiled at the young Taoist priest. "Tao Master Xianwei, I didn't say you, I said someone." Chen Lingjun was so angry that he turned his elbow out of the way, but he couldn't get angry with a girl, turned his head and said with a hippie smile, "I'm so idle today, I have walked to the gate of the mountain." "Are you lazy?" Nuanshu said in a huff. "Mr. Zhu asked me to give you a word. Huang Tinghua, the royal river god, just sent a letter to our mountain, saying that I will be a guest at Luapa Mountain today when I apply for a drink. Mr. Zhu let you figure it out. Oh, drink well later, but drink vigorously, who cares about you?" After speaking, I left. There are still a lot of things to be busy on the mountain. Xianwei looked surprised. When the little butler of Luapashan climbed up the steps and gradually walked away, he lowered his voice and asked, "It's rare to see Nuanshu and be angry, what's the matter?" Chen Lingjun looked sad, held back for a long time and said vaguely, "Little girl film, I have such a little misunderstanding with my Yujin water god brother. Xianhui curiously said to say. Chen Lingjun became more and more embarrassed. With long hair and short knowledge, she knows what she knows. There is nothing to say, drinking and drinking. It turned out that the Yujiang water god back then begged Chen Lingjun's side, and finally succeeded in obtaining a peaceful nothing card issued by the Ministry of Criminal Affairs. At the wine table in the small town outside the mountain, when giving the no-fault sign, the boy in Xingyi stood up at the wine table and said that it was a trivial matter. But in fact, Chen Lingjun had a dusty nose just on Weibo's side. As the monarch of Beiwei Mountain, Piyun Mountain is still the neighbor of his own Luapa Mountain, and he is also a friend who wears a pair of trousers with the master. Well, it doesn't matter if I refuse to help, and I also said a lot of deliberately disgusting people. It's really nothing. I had to go elsewhere to burn incense and I begged for it anyway, and finally I had to take out a master as a New Year's red envelope for myself. The snake gallstone, still the favorite one, ran to Piyun Mountain again overnight and spent a long time at the foot of the mountain. It was not that he was reluctant to bear the snake gallstone. I was really worried about listening to Weiss for the third time. Gritting his teeth, I always feel that I can't blame the Yujiang Shueishan brothers. I can't pick it up at Piyun Mountain at the most because of my little face. No one sees it anyway. I can't lose sight of Luapa Mountain and Yujiang. After making a deal with Weibo, it was considered that he had bought a card from the Ministry of Punishment with real money. After a few years, Yujiang Water God also came to Tsing Boy for a drink. He said that he hadn't seen him for too long and missed his brother, so even if he left the jurisdiction as the water god, he had to ask Huang Tingwa and the Dali court for 2 guanyuan. Can walk all the way to Luapa Mountain, it doesn't matter, these are trivial matters. Then in the tallest restaurant in that small town, the 2 brothers were full of food and drink. Yujiang Water God suddenly remembered something. He said that when he came he saw the water temple of Taifujiang Yanghua and was a little envious. I want Chen Lingjun to help me a little bit so that I can say a few words to the Dali dynasty, the sovereign state of Huangting state, so that several tributary rivers of other families on the border of the Yujiang River can be transferred to the Yujiang site. In this way, when Chen Lingjun returned to Yujiang in the future, the old brothers also had face. Yujiang Shueishan smiled and said that he just said it so that Chen Ling didn't need to take it too seriously. Chen Lingjun bit his head and of course did not decline the matter. Uncle Chen did not have a no on the wine table. However, Chen Lingjun did not have a big deal this time, saying that he would be able to do it, but he still gave a large amount of fairy money, saying that his brothers should go to the Huang Tingwa imperial court to make arrangements. As for himself, of course will help to say a few words, it is incumbent. In fact, the face of Yujiang Shueishan at that time was not so pretty. Chen Lingjun was just in a sad mood and didn't say much. As soon as Yujiang Water God left the town, Chen Lingjun bit his head and went to Piyun Mountain first. When I returned to Luapa Mountain, I squatted on the ground to pick melon seeds to eat. On Wan Shu, who seemed to be suddenly resuscitated, Chen Lingjun said of course that he hadn't paid for it. It's just that in Piyun Mountain before, Wei Boss words were uncomfortable. If you don't help, you want help. He also likes to talk about something that is not righteous. He said something that made Chen Lingjun feel uncomfortable. The rough meaning is to scold Chen Lingjun that Yujiang Water God who treats you as a fool and you treat you as such a fool? Even after many years, Chen Lingjun felt uncomfortable when he thought of this asshole. It was true that he failed to help the brothers of the god of water. Yujiang still failed to annex those rivers, so many years have passed. There is no revisit to the hometown of Yijin. Chen Lingjun drank a long sulky drink and drank the wine in one go. In Yujiang that year, Chen Lingjun never treated him badly. There's no reason to mix well by yourself, and you don't recognize your former friends. I just don't know if Brother Water God came to Luapashan to find himself if he wanted something, and if he could help to do it. Also worry too. Fortunately, there is wine on hand and friends in front of me. There was still half an hour left before Shinshur. Chen Lingjun hesitated for a long time, but did not wait for the Yujiang Water God brother at the gate of the mountain, but said goodbye to Xianhui and said that he was going to meet his friends in Red Candle Town. About an hour later, Chen Lingjun returned from Yufeng from Hongzhou Town and fell to the ground. With his 2 sleeves flung up, he swaggered towards the gate of the mountain and opened his voice to the old brother Xianhui who was sitting on the bamboo chair. He smiled and said, "My water brother, I'm so stupid wasting so much officialdom and walking such a long way, guess what, just ask me for a drink." Xianhui leaned back in his chair lazily, basking in the warm eyes of the end of winter, nodded vigorously and gave a thumbs up. Things gather in groups, people are divided into groups. After all, they are friends of brother Jingqing. Next time I have a chance, help me introduce referral. As a result, I will travel to Yujin in the future, so I want to have a few good drinks and meat? Xianhui now knows Qin Lingjun's temper. It is more useful to praise his friend than to praise him. With a big wave of his hand, Qin Lingjun sat on the bamboo chair beside him, stretched his legs and held the back of his head, with a big smile on his face. Fart big thing, don't talk nonsense. In fact, I once asked the Lord in private about which day Yujiang Water God would come to Luopishan as a guest, and whether he could take a friend to stroll around Luopishan. The master smiled and said that of course it's okay. Except for the Zhulu and Jiaisfeng Zushitang, all are possible. The scenery on the top of Jiaisfeng is good. You must take him there. When you come back you can follow Nwanshu. Say hello, help you two prepare some melon and fruit snacks, just say that I said it. It's just that the master also said, it's better to make an appointment with the two of you when I'm on the mountain, and let me, the mountain owner, come to do something and invite him to have a drink. Master today happens to be not on the mountain, busy with important things on Tongyi's his side. Qin Lingjun was worried that the old cook in Nwanshu would be annoying, so he didn't feel embarrassed to take Yujiang Water God to the Luopa mountain. If my master is on the mountain, see if he still goes to Red Candle Town, just find a restaurant over there to drink. But let the master invite someone to drink in person. Therefore, Qin Lingjun never made an appointment with Yujiang Water God. Qin Lingjun didn't want to let the master drink this kind of entertainment drink. His friend, after all, is not the master's friend, so there is no need. After all, I was the first to follow the master to this Luopa mountain. I know the hard work and difficulty of the master for so many years. My face can be worthless, but the master's face must be very valuable. Zhu Lian sat on the top of the steps, and Shanjun Weibo stood aside, looking at the little idiot with flying brows at the mountain gate. Before Qin Lingjun, Wei Bo found the Yujiang Water God who was spreading the message of the flying sword to the fallen mountain. In fact, it was the instruction of the mountain owner Qin Pingan. It seems that I had expected such an incident a long time ago, saying that if he happened to be not on the mountain, the Yujiang Water God would come to Qin Lingjun again. If it was really just drinking, it was good, let Qin Lingjun stroll through the Luopa mountain and then go. There was no problem with having a drink over Piyun mountain, so Zhu Lian and Wei Bo said hello, saying that he had agreed to Qin Lingjun. But if Qin Lingjun was asked to help again, then after Fei Jin sent the letter to Luopa mountain, Zhu Lian would notify Wei Bo as soon as possible, and trouble Wei Shanjun to block the door. If he can help as much as possible. Those who need to be converted into immortal money, don't need to follow Luopa. Shan is polite, it's just a brother who has settled the account. But I have to remind the Yujiang Water God, let's not take it as an example. Wei Bo curiously asked, if Yujiang Water God doesn't open this mouth today, Qin Pingan will really invite him to drink on the mountain? Zhu Lian smiled and said, of course. Otherwise you think. My son is actually almost spoiling this Uncle Qin to the sky. Since Qin Lingjun is stupid, the son is also stupid with him. Otherwise he would not deliberately leave the position of the left guard of the Luopa mountain in the air for many years. Just to say that Qin Lingjun's trip to Beiju Luzhou and Dadu took a lot of his son's thoughts? In Shui Dongshen's words, I just want to carefully mark out where I go to the latrine. Zhu Lian raised his hand, sighed softly and asked with a smile, what did you do for me? Wei Bo twitched the corners of his mouth and said with no good air, fortunately there is no big mouth from a lion, but this time the evaluation of the gods of the landscape, the Yujiangshui Palace, originally got Abing Shang, I helped raise it to the first level, and was promoted to Yixia. The boundary of the 5 sacred mountains of Aquarius and the 2 Gonghaoshui mansions in Dadu in the central part are qualified to hold a 10-year landscape evaluation to evaluate the various landscape gods and city temples in their respective jurisdictions. A total of grades A, B, C and C ratings hanging in the air above it in fact is just doing something unless it is of great merit. This comment is generally not given. Inferior A can be promoted to 1 level. Therefore, in A, it is possible to skip the promotion. Generally speaking, the Dali court is only in charge of inspections, and is unlikely to overturn a certain evaluation result. Unless it is a comment on the A, the emperor needs to convene a court meeting. If there is a mountain and water who is awarded the title of A, he will be dismissed from the court. The discussion of the imperial study room was put on the agenda. As for the second subordinate, only the Minister of Rights who was responsible for the genealogy of landscapes was required to contact Wuyue Mountain Monarch and Dadu Gongho in private. Zhu Lian said, this is still a small favor? According to Dallas landscape laws he was beaten into C and so on, so he couldn't eat it and walked away. If it is the most inferior grade C, you will immediately lose your status. In C, the gold body will be lowered to the first grade rank, and the grade rank will remain unchanged. However, in addition to watching the after effects, if the next evaluation fails to reach the second level in the middle, even if it is the second one, it will be lowered to the gods. I believe this is the root of why Yujiang water god dared to come to Luapa Mountain to find Qin Lingjun. Otherwise, the landscape of Aquarius Island, not to mention a water from the 5th rank of a small country under the Great Li domain, is estimated to be a high rank of the 3rd rank. If there is no incense accumulated in the early years, no one can guarantee that he will reach the gate of Luapa Mountain. You must be able to climb mountains. Therefore, who would dare to rush to Luapa Mountain as a guest? The reason is very simple. A Luapa Mountain, the genealogy members come together just like that. Who do you want to be responsible for hospitality? Is it the young sword fairy mountain master of Luapa Mountain? Or Qin Pingan, the hidden official of the Great Wall of Jianghu? Wei Bo laughed and said, I actually gave Yujiang a 10-year time limit. If the next big exam fails to get AB middle school, my Beiyue appraisal department will have to settle the old and new accounts together. Although I didn't say that directly, the guy understands it. Anyway, based on Yujiang's background, he really wants to serve snacks, and then take out a little family property from the treasury, and pour more fairy money into Yujiang and its tributaries. It's not too difficult to be a middle school. What's more, if you really want to win a middle school, you can still get a gold and copper money from the reward and punishment division. This account is easy to figure out. Yujiang doesn't lose much money. Julien joked, don't say anything else, just say that Lord Shanjun can show up and block the way in person. Whether it's a kind of persuasion or a beating, it's just a bargaining table that can't be bought for a lot of money. Wei Bo glanced at the gate of the mountain and couldn't help asking, you said, can our Uncle Chen guess the twists and turns here? Julien smiled and shook his head and said, he is a real fool, he can't guess, he won't think about it. Wei Bo smiled and nodded, I really want to have that brain, it's already in the Yupu state and the tail won't be up to the sky. Julien turned to his family, it's okay. Wei Bo couldn't help asking again, I just don't understand what Qin Lingjun thinks. No matter how stupid he is, he should always know the points. Is he really stupid or pretending to be stupid? Julien smiled without saying anything. The old cook just sat on the steps, raised his gaze and looked into the distance. Yunxing Day is uninhabited, searching chiefing for drafts. Wei Bo remembered something and couldn't help but say, the couplet sent by Luapa Mountain is really liked by Guangfu Temple. Otherwise, it won't hang in the middle with the gift couplet from Shenkong Temple in China. Julien smiled and said nothing. At the Zen Temple in Aquarius, which has just entered the head of the sect, there is a respected Buddhist dragon elephant, and the ascension ceremony was held not long ago. Somehow he found Weibo in Piyun Mountain and Luapa Mountain because of the relationship. Because the incident was rushed and could not be delayed, Weibo asked Julien to do it for him and present a couplet. Julien wanted to fly a sword to spread the letter to Shindu Mountain. Originally, this kind of thing should have been written by the mountain owner for reasons and emotions, but it was really too late in time, so he had to imitate his own son's handwriting, and the son intentionally left aside. The private seal of Qin Pingan was in the bamboo building. Julien was supposed to take it whenever he needed to use it. After writing the couplet, he sealed the private seal and asked Wei Bo to send it to the Buddhist temple. The old monk who served as the abbot was difficult in Buddhism, and there were 2 Zen allusions to picking clouds and putting tigers out. Pick up clouds to make up for the dead, and let the tiger go back to the mountain. Zongfeng is like a dragon, and when he sees nature he becomes a Buddha. Climb to the throne of Dharma and roar as a lion. In the Millennium Dark Room a light will light up. Wei Bo is about to return to Piyun Mountain. The case is like mountains and seas, not an exaggeration at all. Never thought that some of Julien's words made Wei Bo not only stop but also sat on the steps. Some people read books and like to go back and read. Julien put his cheeks in his hands, squinted his eyes and smiled and said softly, Qin Lingjun is the same and so is your Wei Bo, but the content you look at is different. And when we choose to look through the pages of old books, we all like to read the most beautiful words. So even if the time has passed, it doesn't matter if the real thing is wrong. At dusk, far away from the vast mountains, light rain and breeze are faint clouds. His own number of peaks is thin and thin. After completely moving out of the Longquan sword sect in the boundary of the state, Su Xiaoqiao took 2 newly accepted direct disciples on a trip, and Xieling was practicing in retreat. As a result, Lu Xianying, the new lord, took Mizu back to the teacher's gate very rarely, only to see a big brother, Donggu, teaching swordsmanship for a group of disciples. Those registered disciples who were in the mountains a little later than Donggu and Su Xiaoqiao back then did not leave those few sword fairy embryos behind when they took office. The ones who really became the disciples of Wan Qiong's room, on the contrary, were relatively inferior. The two survivors of Lu's criminals were just young children from that year, and now they have become other people's masters. Lu Xianying asked, "Where's Tai-Smith Yuan? Why didn't I strike iron on the mountain today? Before I came to the mountain, didn't Fei Jin pass the letter?" Donggu ignored it. In the entire Aquarius Island, the only one who dared to call Master Yuan Taijiang is this junior. The two emperors have respected the master. One continent immortal master does not need to talk about others, but only talks about the former neighbor of Luopishan, Qin Shanzhu, dare you? So now the disciples of Longquan Sword Sect's re-inheritance, one by one, admire the patriarch Yuan Qiong who has always lived in Jianzhong and can't see anyone, because they have heard the elder Su Xiaoqiao who said a few words. Once she said that when Qin Jianxian was a teenager in a small town, he used to work in the blacksmith shop built by our sect on the Longshu River. It was the kind of part-time job at the bottom of the mountain, and Qin Jianxian was on master's side in the early years, and he was very courteous and thoughtful. Respectful and respectful. Lu Xianying coughed and reminded, "Brother Dong, the Lord is asking you something." Donggu said with a sharp glance, "I don't know what to say back to the sect master." The round-faced girl complained softly, "On Brother Dong's side, what do you have for the Supreme Master? Seeing outside but not seeing the outside, boring is not boring?" Crying Yue didn't say anything from his heart, but deliberately said it to Donggu. TSK, now that I am so sophisticated, not to mention his proficiency, he can be regarded as entering the room. Lu Xianying complained, "We are up and down the sect, just a few people, add together is there 50? Isn't it a bit shabby? Think I was studying abroad and had to line up when I was sitting in the pit." Donggu chuckled. According to the promise made at the time, Yuan Qiong resigned as the sovereign and handed over to Lu Xianying, the first of the Longquan Jianzhong to enter the Jade Realm, as his successor. However, such a major event was only decided at a dinner table, and then no celebration was held. Pingzhou knew of this, not many Xinjia hilltops, only the Dei court sent a ceremonial book, personally took people to Longquan Jianzhong to make up the congratulations, not many people, not light. And the first thing Lu Xianying did after he became the sovereign was to make a good opinion, went to Piyun Mountain to find Wei Shanjun, and used his great magical powers to help relocate several hills including Xinxiu Mountain to this side. Patting Donggu on the shoulder, Lu Xianying said earnestly, "Senior brother Dong, you must practice hard. My dignified Longquan Sword Sect's discipline is just a nascent soul. It's not plausible." After that, Lu Xianying took the round-faced girl and walked around the other hills. The two walked on the road in the middle of the mountain. Lu Xianying was wearing a cotton-padded jacket like her, bowing his head and holding hands. Otherwise how would he call Mao Dong during the winter? The round-faced girl who gave herself the name of Yu Qianyue asked, "Why didn't he invite you to create the next sect, such a big matter?" Lu Xianying smiled and said, "I'm afraid I will steal his limelight. If I play, who will care about him?" Qin Pingan. Of course, Qin Pingan had already explained this to Lu Xianying. Kaiwei rolled his eyes. Lu Xianying smiled for no reason. The same person, enduring hardship and enjoying good luck, are two completely different kinds of knowledge. Kaiwei nodded, "There is so much truth." Lu Xianying sighed with emotion and stopped to look away, set up a vain heart house, with reason and material desire competing to be the master. After getting along for a long time, Xiaoyu almost forgot about this guy. He used to study for many years in Nan Pasuazhou's Tanru family. Xiaoyu asked, "Did you have such a good relationship with Chen Pingyan when you were young?" "Of course." Lu Xianying laughed and said, "No. It's a little weird to credit the month, isn't it?" Lu Xianying squatted down. After searching for a long time, he couldn't find the root of licorice. He had to give up and slowly said, "It is said that the relationship between two friends is similar, and the relationship between two friends can last. Do you think the personalities of Chen Pingyan and I are the same?" Xiaoyu shook his head. "If you were as virtuous as that hidden official, we would not be able to eat a pot of dried duck bamboo shoots. Qin Pingan has been careful since I was a child and didn't talk a lot. I'm so carefree. I want to say anything. I don't care if it sounds good or not. I don't care about it. Let's talk about it." The two sides met back then. At the beginning I got along with Qin Pingan. Actually I also think it's boring. I think this guy is boring. I like to joke. I often punch and kick with my peers. It seems that this is the way to be close. This is a good relationship. Of course, I will pay more attention to strength. Qin, at the time of Pingyan, I was not beaten less, but I was just joking with him, but I was not angry. Then one day I was kicked from behind by a neighbor who naturally was also joking, but I was so angry that it just happened. When I was in a bad mood, I had a fierce fight with him. Later, Qin Pingan found the herbal medicine. I suddenly understood one thing. I have a problem with my life. Anyway, after that, I seldom talk with anyone anymore, but Qin Pingan still often follows me and goes up and down the river together. I taught him some messy things. Over time I got used to it. It seems to have become friends. When I was young, I used to play fist-smashing games with people, to see who couldn't bear the pain first, and until one side gave up, I always won. Qin Pingan never played this. Later he had a little slug behind his ass. But I like to play with me, fart the big kid, don't admit defeat, cry while playing, and resolutely refuse to give up. Qin Pingan has to talk badly, so he persuades the little slug not to play, and then let me not play this with the little snot, that kind of big kid. It's just when you grow up, you can't stand a beating. For some reason, no matter what Qin Pingan is now, what kind of person will Qin Pingan be in the future? In Lu Xianying's eyes, it seems that he will always be just the dark, thin, bright-eyed boy in Mud Bottle Alley. He will look serious when he does everything. He will look at each other's eyes when he talks to others. He will only squeeze when he is thinking about things. He started talking, I don't know what I'm thinking, and I didn't say anything when I asked, just like the whole hometown, where the days of chaos are in the present, those with hope are thinking about the future, the ones with no money are thinking about earning money, only the taciturn straw-shoe boy seems to be alone. One person, go backwards. Lu Xianying sighed, anyway, the three of us have grown up. Once upon a time the stream was getting shallower, the well water was getting colder, the locust tree was getting older, the iron lock was rusty, and the big cloud was drooping. No peach blossoms can be seen in peach leaves this year. Now it is, the snow melts, the green hills thaw, the water under the ice sounds, the yellow warbler under the leaves, another year of peach blossoms and the best spring this year. In the night, one person sneaked into the Huoshan temple in Suijia town. After this person entered the newly repaired main hall of the Huoshan temple, he did not dare to wake up the snoring temple blessing, and tore off the snow mud talisman on his body to prevent the minions of the city temple from being aware of the traces, but the man's palm remained the same. Secretly grasping the walnut that Senior Qin gave away, facing the painted statue of clay sculpture, clasped his fist and said, Do you of the Ghost Axe Palace, pay a visit to the temple. If there is a lot of harassment, I will leave after a while. Do you has traveled the rivers and lakes over the years? In addition to entering the Sevuing realm from the peak of the Dongfu realm that year, he also learned 2 talisman. The good old man gave him 2 pages of paper. Talisman painting tricks of the landscape breaking obstacles. Du Yu is naturally qualified to practice talisman, otherwise he would not be able to teach the steel talisman and snow mud talisman that belonged to the mountain family school, to the predecessor of the sword fairy who claimed to be Qin Good. It can be seen that these 2 immortal urns are very different from the ordinary landscape charms used to prevent ghosts from hitting walls. A big bearded man appeared from the statue in the temple, floated to the ground and asked with a smile, Is it going to be a problem again? Du Yu smiled miserably and was really hit. Before coming to the ancestral temple in Suijieking, Du Yu had even stolen a trip to Xiangyun Lake and found the lake monarch Inho. The other party didn't get into trouble. After hearing about Du Yu's experience, Inho only said that the little Xiangyun Lake was absolutely unable to protect him, so he quickly found another way out. The Hujuan was still talking about loyalty, and asked him if he needed the entanglement needed to run. The temple is small and the hospitality is poor. The man waved his hand and drove 2 side-by-side benches from the corner of the wall, and threw a pot of wine to Du Yu. Tell me what happened. I'm so mediocre. I definitely won't be able to help, but please drink and listen to you vomiting, it's okay. Du Yu rushed along the road, exhausted and fearful. At this moment he sat down on the bench, raised his hand to catch the hip flask and took a sip with his head up. In fact, one shouldn't be here. Pay attention, it will cause the temple master to get into a landscape lawsuit. If there is a fairy teacher to ask for questioning, the temple will just tell the truth that Du Yu has indeed been here, and don't help me cover it. As for what I have committed, I won't say anything. Now, it's fortunate to be able to breathe in the fire temple. The big bearded man smiled and asked non-committently, Or I will let the temple wish to fry a few dishes of wine and food. There is a stove behind the small temple. If you don't like my temple to wish the cooking skills, you can ask him to buy some from the town. After supper, I know a few fly restaurants, good craftsmanship, cheap and good quality. Du Yu hurriedly waved his hand. It is better to do less than to do more. Just drink it. Looking at the exhausted monk in front of him, the bearded man stroked his beard and smiled. They are all the gods of the Sevuing realm, and are you so embarrassed? Du Yu smiled bitterly. After drinking, I plan to go elsewhere to try my luck. If I can't, I can only go to Ao Pingzhou to avoid the limelight. The big bearded man nodded and said, It seems that the trouble is not small. Du Yu intends to be a dead horse doctor. Take a sigh of relief here, and after leaving Sujiaking tonight, he will take a trip to Duckweed Sword Lake. What if that guy named Zhou Fei with a generous shot is really the Jiangxian who can make Li Jianxian remember? Back then he took care of the nursing home for Senior Qin and took care of the infant child. Someone stepped in over the wall, speaking very unconsciously, and introduced himself, but he bends around and said, "The birth of Ginger, the admiration of Ginger, it's true or false?" Du Yu cursed back at that time, "I'm your uncle Jiang Shangzhen. It's just that the only thing similar to that Jiang Shangzhen is rich." The meeting gift given to Du Yu back then was a golden strategist Jiawan. It was actually the golden wuxia who is priceless and priceless on the mountain. What if it's really that Jiang Sangjin? On the whole continent, it is said that the female sword fairy Li Kai of Duckweed Sword Lake is not a Taoist couple, then Jiang Shangzhen is better than a Taoist couple. The problem now is that even if he can walk to the Duckweed Sword Lake alive, how to meet Li Jiangxian's face is a big trouble. The big bearded man smiled and said, "Come to me first, even if you find it right." Du was confused. The man shook the jug and the old was saying, "Qin Jianxian has been here before. It seems that he has expected something to happen today." "Well, I can't say that. It is Qin Jiangxian's precaution. He asked me to help me give some words to him." As soon as he heard that it was the good senior, Du was immediately shocked and relieved. Even if he couldn't solve his urgent need when his life was the most desolate, Du seemed to just listen to a few conversations by others, and handed out a scoop of water when he was thirsty. The big bearded man laughed and said, "He said as long as it is a matter of Zhanli that makes you feel clear, you should go to the Golden Crow Palace, which is not too far away from here, and seek help from the sword fairy Lu Jiqing. If you feel that Lu Jiqing's swordsmanship is not enough. A nascent soul realm sword repairer still can't solve the trouble, so I went to the Taihui sword sect to find the Lord Lu Jinglong. If the trouble is so great that you feel that even Lu Jinglong can't get it right, let you go directly to Litafeng and find the real fire dragon. No matter who you find, just say that your name is Du, a friend from the rivers and lakes that Xuanhuan met in Suijiaking, and you will definitely be able to drink. This is just a way. If the situation is urgent and the situation is difficult, there is another way to hold Buddha's feet temporarily. You can find someone nearby. For example, you can go to the Bone Beach to find the Phi Ma Zong on the southernmost part of a continent, and go to Mui Mountain. Look for Zhuquan or Wei Yusong, Du Wenxi and others and find any one of them. In the middle of the continent, look for Jidu Lingyuan Gong Shinlin, or Longting Ho Li Yuan, in addition to Yun Shanqing Shinjinza in the southeast. Chunlaputang Shi, Song Lanxiao etc. Kaik Mansion Sun Qing Wuyu etc. are all okay. If you are not particularly anxious and can't travel far, send a letter to any of the above-mentioned mountain flying sorts. Just remember to write in the envelope regarding the sender of the letter. You should use your hands and feet to find someone to pretend to be, so that the secret letter will not be left on the side and delay things in vain. Qin Jianxian also said something. The reason why he didn't leave you a letter through Ghost Axe Palace with these things was because he was worried that it would stretch your courage and it would not be a good thing for you. Like you always do. That way it's good to be courageous and walk the rivers and lakes as much as possible so you can try not to cause trouble. So Qin Jianxian finally drank and said with me a smile, "I hope I won't have a chance to tell you this, but if there is such a day it would be like seeing you today." Du also let you not be afraid of things and rely on friends when you go out. Anyway, his friend is your friend of Du. Looking at the dumbfounded fool, the big bearded man laughed and said, "I'm dumbfounded? Normally I also think Qin Jianxian is telling a joke." To say that he knew Lu Jianxian of the Golden Crow Palace, the sect master Lu of the Taihui sword sect, he believed. But if you go to Potty Peak, you only need to report your name, and you can ask the real fire dragon to help. I really don't believe it. Do you think you are the great master of Dragon Tiger Mountain? Or the master Wensheng who stopped Beiju Luzhou's cross-sea sword repair? Or is your kid very familiar with Zhao Tianshi and Wensheng? But the old man at the wine table is still a young sword fairy, drinking some wine, talking big, bragging and not breaking the law. Du swallowed and asked, "That good senior, what is his last name?" The bearded man was a little speechless. He was stunned. He pointed to the soldier cultivator in front of him and said angrily, "Du, you are really a talent. After staying with that sword fairy for so long, he has the same virtue as himself, only knowing the other's surname is Qin. Du and the young sword fairy are a real tribulation together. Back then, there was such a big commotion in Suijia town, and it all took over the catastrophe." Du was a little embarrassed. He really didn't know more. The senior sword fairy walked the rivers and lakes, and liked to call himself Good Man Qin. In the early years, a girl named Jing Qian and a scholar named Li Huai seemed to have gone to the Ghost Axe Palace to find themselves, but Di was not on the mountain at the time. Later, I heard about it and didn't think much about it. Later, there was a young woman with the same name and surname. In the Daduan dynasty of China, there were 4 rounds of boxing with Chao Ci. Of course, Diu had heard some gossip about the arena, but didn't think much about it. Otherwise, why do you still make Diu think? Is that Jing Qian who can challenge Chao Ci, or the girl who has taken the initiative to find herself? Diu finished drinking a pot of wine, courageous and left with a fist. The bearded man didn't hold him back either. He smiled with a fist. Good trip. Remember to come back for a drink when you have time. You can get 3 sticks of incense. After quietly leaving Suijia town, Diu tried his best to choose those inaccessible wilderness and ridges along the way, bypassing many mountain sects and Xinjia ferry crossings, and finally reached the gate of Jianghu Palace Mountain. Diu bit his scalp and self-registered, Ghost Palace Diu, please see Lu Jianxian. The monk in the concierge knows the Ghost Axe Palace and this military monk named Diu. After all, Duyu's parents are the sons of the pair of mountain Taoists in the kingdom of Jinduo, but they have only heard of it. Brother Jinwu Palace smiled and said, even if your parents are here, you want see our Uncle Lu. The master uncle in my own family can't be seen by anyone who wants to. It is universally acknowledged that the Yuan Ing realm sword fairy in Luzhou, Beiju, is of heavier weight, second only to the Yuan Ing realm sword repair of the Great Wall of Sword Qi, and it is not mixed with water. The porter monk waved his hand and said, Diu, let's go, don't be boring and don't make me scolded. Uncle Lu sure is notoriously weak in temperament and far away from the world. Except in his early years on the Yuyinjia side of Chuanlu Garden, he met a young sword fairy from a foreign country. The relationship between the two parties is very good. Besides, there are almost no friends on the mountain. Perhaps Sect Master Lu of Taihui Jianzong had to be counted as one. Uncle Master had visited Pianran Peak and it was rumored that both parties had drunk. Of course they lost. Sect Master Liu's drinking capacity is invincible and everyone knows it. Therefore, let alone Diu, the mountain relationship of the palace lord of the Ghost Axe Palace can't reach his Uncle Lu. Diu scratched his head anxiously. This fairy teacher, help, I have a friend who is Lu Jiangxian's friend so I can come to Lu Jianxian if I have something to do. The concierge said with a smile, I have a friend of a friend's friend who knows a disciple of Zixuanfeng's line, and this Taoist priest is Yuan Zhenjin's disciple, then I am friends with Yuan Jinjuan? Diu was really gone. Just about to open his voice and call Lu Jiqing's name, the concierge raised his hand and pointed to the lightning thundercloud in the sky. He smiled and reminded, Diu, please don't be a fool. The rules of our Golden Crow Palace are all over there. Diu walked out a few steps, turned his head and looked around. He didn't even know that Lu Jianxian was practicing on the top of the Golden Crow Palace, and he didn't want to leave. So he squatted far on the roadside and slapped himself severely, making you like to be nosy. Without the skills of Senior Qin, he prefers to be strong and do good deeds. If it doesn't work, I can only take a trip to the Duckweed Sword Lake. I am afraid that I am afraid of repeating the same mistakes and continue to eat closed doors. A ray of sword light quietly left the top of the Golden Crow Palace, came to Duyu's side and asked, Are you Diu? Diu raised his head with a dazed look. The young man came with a golden hairpin on his head and was wearing a white jade robe. Diu wondered, Are you? Is it a direct disciple of the Golden Crow Palace who passed the mountain gate? The man opened the door and said, My name is Lu Jiqing and I am the one you are looking for. Diu hurriedly got up and was about to say something polite. Lu Jiqing had already said, Let's talk, I want to find someone and which mountain to trouble. Diu was stunned on the spot. Did this Lu Jianxian not ask what happened? Since you are Qin Pinggan's friend, I can trust you. About Mo was to see through Duyu's mind. Lu Jiqing twitched at the corner of his mouth, probably even smiling. Since you are willing to come to me, you can trust my swordsmanship, so just lead the way. For so many years, Diu has been wandering around the rivers and lakes. During this period he has only returned to the Ghost Axe Palace twice, once for the Mountain Gate celebration and once for the birthday of his mother. Diu has always been uninterested in the feats and deeds of the mountain. Anyway, they are all things that are beyond my reach. It's good to be confused by my own affairs. Could it be that the real name of the good man Qin, Senior Sword Immortal, is Qin Pinggan? The name is, not too silly but, it's good. It's just why in Beiju Luzhou, it seems that you have never heard of this name? No matter how many sword repairs in Beiju Luzhou, no matter how much sword repair is like a cloud, with the realm and swordsmanship of Senior Qin, Diu is no longer lazy to spend money on the Shanshui Mansion report, and no longer likes to go to Xianxia Ferry. How could he have heard of it? Anyway, you didn't plan to get close to the gods on the mountain in his life. What did Lao Tzu spend the wrong money for? Is it good to drink flower wine? Although Du would still take the Xianxia Ferry once in a while, he just lived in the cheapest room. Apart from the ferry fee, there would never be any additional expenses. He wanted to earn my ferry money and dreamed about it. A snowflake money is 1,000 taels of silver. I can't be a rich man in any country at the foot of the mountain? Du asked cautiously. Lu Jianxian, Senior Chen mentioned me? Lu Jiqing nodded. Of course, you are his friend and saved him. Having said that, Lu Jiqing couldn't help but take a closer look at Du, the one who saved Qin Pingan. If this were to be spread out, it would only be said that in the northern province of Luzhou, where swordsmanship is like a cloud, this ghost axe palace soldier monk has a lot of amulets and life-saving charms. The only problem is that those sword repairmen who have been to the Great Wall of Sword Qi may not be willing to believe that a soldier monk in the Sevuing realm will save the life of the hermit. No matter how thick Du's face is, he can't suffer live. Where does Senior Qin need him to save? He had a brain fever that year and went to meet Senior Qin, who was recovering from his injuries. Qin Zhenxian is also true. On his friend's side, he is willing to say that there are none, and he is not afraid of being laughed at by his friends? But it's also right, it seems to be something good seniors would do. I'm afraid this is why I was able to meet Qin Zhenxian in the rivers and lakes under the mountain. Lu Jiqing asked, is it a disaster caused by meddling? Du was a little embarrassed and hummed softly. Lu Jiqing squinted his eyes and patted Du on the shoulder. Very well, starting from today, welcome to come here as a guest. Du was both frustrated and honored, so he had to say politely, don't dare. Lu Jiqing, huh? Du immediately saw the wind and the rudder. Dare, why not dare? Lu Jianxian dare to recognize me as a friend, why don't I dare to climb Lu Jianxian? Lu Jiqing endured it. Very good, at first glance it is Qin Pingan's quack friend. Afterwards, Du and Lu Jiqing explained the cause of the trouble, which was related to the wealthy Qianglin sect. Money can help God, Qianglin for so many years, under the guise of hunting down the remnants of the wild monsters, hunting down the mountains and the spirits, various mountains and waters, selling for profit, and earning a lot of money like that Tongyi's house Xiaolong compared with Chio's creation of a wild garden, it is nothing short of inferior, with awkward methods and almost no profit. Qianglin mountain allies and business partners are all over one continent, and the more shallow the mountaintop sect, the more cross-country, the more fierce the money-making methods are. Moreover, gathering people in groups by type will be the first to look at Qianglin. It is conceivable that the Mountain Immortal Mansion and the Jianghu School are all things that can't come out of the eyes of money. Therefore, many local monster monks who are indisputable in the world have been hurt by the fish, but the Qianglin monks have hidden their tricks and shot so fast, it's hard to be caught by outsiders. It happened that Du was floating on the rivers and lakes, and he met one of the demonic monks of the lower 5 realms. He was a simple-minded young man. He guarded a townhouse all the year round. He occasionally went to the Sky Bridge to hear about books and go shopping. In fact, that little spirit just within a few years of the successful refining, Du rescued the boy twice. With the golden crow armor on his body, he prevented 2 groups of monks from chasing after him. In the end, he could not save the boy. Because for the last time, a protagonist of Qianglin Patriarch Tang's protagonist appeared in person. He was an extremely young Jindan Dixian. I heard that he was the proud disciple of Qianglin Patriarch, if it weren't for the other party's fear of Du. Du, who had been splashed with a big bucket of dirty water, couldn't escape that walnut. The young Jindan was meticulous in his thoughts and acted fiercely. He had already arranged the roots and feet of the little spirit and the evidence of sheltering a wild monster race. The little spirit had no experience in the arena, and he didn't want to hurt Du, so he was stupid and took the initiative to plead guilty. Now he doesn't know his life or death. Du only knows that the boy was taken to a hill where the Qianglin clan belongs to. Du felt that this was wrong and there was no such reason in the world. In that battle, the wild world did not reach Luzhou in North Ju, and was blocked by the Dali cavalry in the middle of Aquarius Island. There were indeed some wild monster monks running around, but Taihui Sword Sect and Duckweed Sword Lake, the monks including King Liangzong, had been tightly guarded on the coastal boundaries of a continent. Du's eyes reddened when he thought of this. It is not only his own experience, but also affects his parents and Ghost Axe Palace. That guy once threatened to go to Ghost Axe Palace in person. On the way to escape, Du occasionally regretted it. He had known that he would not be in a mess and be a good person. So what kind of friend Lu Jianxian said today? Du felt quite uncomfortable. With such a low level and such a bad temperament, Jianxian is willing to make friends with such a friend, and do you have no face to admit? Is Xiong Linzong? Then I have to call 1 or 2 swordsmen to go with him. Lu Jiqing squinted his eyes and said, "It is not difficult for me to openly ask the sword in my current state. It is difficult to cut down to the other party's patriarch hall." Du was frightened when he heard it. In fact, he was just asking for justice. Just let Xiong Linzong let go of that spirit. It's best to let that young earth fairy stop pestering him, and Xiong Linzong should not take revenge on Ghost Axe Palace afterwards. Otherwise, with Qiang Linzong's vast magical powers, you only need to be secretive, and Ghost Axe Palace will be in trouble within a few years, and it will be like a mountain. Lu Jiqing clearly knew Du Ye's thoughts and said, You don't need to show up to ask the sword. The matter will definitely be solved for you. As long as the little spirit is not dead for a while, it will definitely be saved, but if it is already dead, just ask for justice for you. For this you have to be mentally prepared. Besides, if there are any sequelae, just leave it to Chen Pingon to solve it. He is best at cleaning up mess. I can guarantee him that he will never hurt Ghost Axe Palace. Du shook his head and said tentatively, "You really don't need to ask the sword. As long as Lu Jianxian helps to plead, I don't want to come to Qiong Linzong to forcefully leave behind a ghost of the lower 5 realms. I'm willing to spend money at that time. I don't want to have a hard time going around and intercede with Qiong Linzong." Lu Jiqing said, Those with a low level will listen to those with a high level." Du felt helpless. The sword immortal was the sword immortal, and his words were domineering. Seeing Du taking it seriously, Lu Jiqing explained, "It's a joke." Du had no choice but to say, "The younger generation can hear it." Lu Jiqing said, "Don't worry, I won't act recklessly." After that, Lu Jiqing took Du back to his mountain and asked Du to wait for a while. Lu Jiqing sent 2 letters to the Duckweed Sword Lake and Taihui Sword Sect respectively. After embarking on the boat, Lu Jiqing reminded, We are going to 2 places next. During this period you should consolidate your qi to heal your wounds. Don't be distracted. During this period of time, let's run away in a hurry. Your mind is a little damaged. If you don't pay attention, it will become a flaw in the Tao mind. In the future, whether it is to condense a pill or to conceive a nascent infant, you will have a lot of trouble. The sky is difficult. It is said that the heart demon is like a spring grass, which grows in the gap between the heart and mind, and can ventilate with the heart and mountains. Unknowingly it will occupy the magpie's nest. If the heart demon continues to be nourished, it will eventually become a tall one. The demon is a 10-foot tall transfiguration demon. Therefore, the more old Yuanying, the more reclusive, the more sitting and the more dead, the easier it is to decay in form and spirit, and the root cause is here. Lu Jiqing handed Du a porcelain bottle with a few immortal pill that calmed the nerves. It was not a good elixir. It was the standard equipment passed down by the ancestor of the Golden Crow Palace. Lu Jiqing said, "Every time you take the next one, after the medicine is taken, you will converge your mind and breathe in silently, and strive to finish the absorption of the pill's spiritual energy within 1 big week of operation, and turn it into the spiritual spring deposits of your natal Qi Palace." While breathing on the ferry, Du became dizzy and suddenly heard Lu Jiqing say, "Here." Du opened his eyes and looked down at a lake with many islands, such as blue snails and a jasper plate. Lu Jiqing found Rong Chang, a major disciple of Duckweed Jianghu, a sword repairman in the Yuanying realm, and roughly explained his intentions. Rong Chang quickly went to Master to ask for instructions. After returning, he smiled and said, Master readily agreed, saying that she is now in a sparse state and has no face to go out. "Just let me walk with you," but Master said that you are not old-fashioned in doing things. There is such a blatant question to Jian Xiu from the ancestors of Jianbai's family. This kind of activity is too careless. Beating people without slaps in the face. It is more slap than slashing the ancestors. A little spirit, life-saving, he went to Qiang Linzong to collect debts, used blind eyes and quietly touched the Qiang Linzong Patriarch Hall, saving a few swords to cut through the mountain and water prohibition. We arrived near the Patriarch Hall before we handed the sword. Cover his face and report a brave feat such as, "I am the first man of the sword immortal in the north" by Chang, and ran away after the cut. In fact, Master's original words are not diarrhea, but diarrhea. It's just this kind of remarks Master said right and wrong. Of course, Rong Chang, who is a big disciple, has to be subtle. Lu Jiqing nodded and said, "Teached. In this kind of thing, the Golden Crow Palace's experience is indeed inferior to yours." Rong Chang smiled knowingly. In Beiju Luzhou, of course it is a good word from the top. Du didn't even know the sacredness of the tall and gracious man in front of him. However, listening to the tone of the dialogue between the two sides, it must be a senior on the mountain who does not lose the realm of Lu Jianxian. Otherwise, who is full and holding on, often asked Jenna sect. Rong Chang turned his head to hold a fist and smiled at Du, fortunately meeting. Du quickly tremblingly clasped his fists in return. 3 people came soon. Among them was a beautiful woman who called herself Sui. There is also a pair of teenagers and girls who are like people on the painting. A bunch of people looked at Du together. Show Du a little Harry. Qinli asked, Big brother, can we be together? Rong Chang said helplessly, You have to ask Master first. One by one they were all Master's baby bumps. There was a slight accident outside the sect. He, a senior brother, couldn't afford it and Master's temper could make him shit. What's more, Master's temperament in recent years is really not very good. The boy put his hands around his chest. Master clearly knows that we will follow. Since there is no additional reminder of the senior brother, he must have agreed. Among the direct disciples collected by Li Kai and Benzhou, Duckweed Sword Lake has the best swordsmanship and is also Li Kai's favorite apprentice. Now he is named Sui Jingqing, but on the top of the Zhu Shitang's landscape genealogy, there is another old one. Name it. The hidden official Qinli, Gao Yi's sister, Gao Yuqing. Qinli is now a sword repairer in the Golden Core realm. Unlike Bai Xian's self-proclaimed Little Hermit, Qinli's nickname was given by the senior sword repairman in his hometown. It's on an innocent sign in a wine shop. Qinli, the saber is awkward and the flying sword is wailing. 100-year-old sword fairy is at your fingertips. As for Gao Yuqing, in fact he was also a Longmen realm sword repairman. Only with Qinli by her side she pales in comparison. Otherwise, Gao Yuqing is a well-deserved genius of kendo in any sect of kendo in Howran world. In the words of Master Li Kai, that is, Rong Chang, your senior brother is really energetic, waiting eagerly to be equalized by the juniors and sisters one by one. In the end, Rong Chang asked Master what he meant. Li Kai didn't bother to speak, just cast a look at Rong Chang. Rong Chang nodded, no need to talk nonsense. The group of people on the rune boat of Lu Jiqing had already made an appointment with Lu Jinglong of Taihui Sword Sect, and they met at the top of the Qianglin Sect Vassal Hill. Lu Jiqing and Rong Chang chatted, I plan to ask the sword to end, and I will go to the wild battlefield to find opportunities to break through. The monks in Jianghu Palace have never been to the Great Wall of Jianqi. At first there were very few sword repairs, and Lu Jiqing had broken through the Golden Core realm for a few years, and he really didn't want to be on the battlefield of the Great Wall of Sword Qi. He also needed the local sword to repair the road over there, not a disservice. Rong Chang smiled and said, It's a good thing. Gao Yuqing had been looking at the military cultivator and couldn't believe what Lu Jiqing said, and asked in his heart, Brother, do you think this person really saved the hermit? On the fierce battlefield like the Great Wall of Jianqi, there are only young hidden officials who can save others. Qinli thought for a while, nodded and said, Judging by the time, the encounter between Lord Hidden Officer and Du was between the first time he returned home from the Great Wall of Jianqi and his second visit to the Great Wall of Jianqi as a hidden officer. The hidden officer is not yet a sword repairman, so it is possible. In fact, it is not possible, it is certain. Hermit-sama will definitely not be joking about this kind of thing. Sui Jingqing smiled and asked, Master Du, who do you think is the most powerful and famous in the sword repairs in the Great Wall of Sword Qi? Du quickly said, Who else can it be? Of course it is the hidden official who is said to be from Aquarius Island. Once passing by a Xinjia ferry crossing by accident, I found a copy of the immortal swordsman's imprint, including a seal which made Du the most famous in the case, and he will never tire of it. Let 3 tricks. Haha, there is such a coincidental and interesting thing in the world, and Du almost laughed so much that his stomach hurts. To the south of Dongbaoping's Hao, such a small place, Howran has the smallest territory, but it is the place where Howran 8 continents are the most admired heroes. There is a gossip on the rivers and lakes. It first came from the steward of a transcontinental ferry in Beiju Luzhou. The old steward said that the youngest hidden official in the history of the Great Wall of Sword Qi, Yushu Linfeng, ruthless, kills without blinking. In the first meeting of the upside-down mountain Chunbanzhai, the young man who hung a hidden official badge finally appeared. The sword immortal and the steward sat face to face, but the two groups of people didn't talk a few words, and they didn't agree with each other. The hidden official gave an order in the hall. As a result, more than 20 transcontinental ferry stewards were half done on the spot. Fate, there is no way to fight back. Believe it or not. Anyway, I was there and I tried my best to save 2 friends. The young hidden officer, I was the most loyal, so he admired me. Heroes, no fight, no acquaintance, happy arms and words. The hidden officer sat next to me and his head fell on the ground. The blood-stained land, each drinking. Nowadays, the place where young hidden officials is the most touted in the world is probably not Aquarius, but Beiju Luzhou, which has distinct love and hatred. The old-fashioned young Jianxia smiled and nodded slightly. The girl blinked. Isn't the master Du Xian in front of him a fool? Although Du Yu was puzzled, he did not dare to ask more. Qin Li smiled and said, have a chance, get to know each other? Du Yu waved his hand quickly, how can I have this fate? Fiao. A large number of sword repairmen from different hometowns successively met at the Xianxiaduku near the entrance of a mineral vein. The female sword immortal of Iazhao, Xuanhuan, 2 disciples respectively named Chaomu, Ju Xing, a pair of young girls, one carrying a bamboo box, and one holding a green bamboo stick. Jin Jiazhou Songpin, who is also a female sword fairy, also accepted 2 children from the Great Wall of Sword Qi as heirs, but they were both girls named Sun Zhao and Jin Luang. There is also a Yupu realm sword repaired in Yuyue, with 2 new disciples, Yu Qingzhang and He Xiangting. In Luxiazu, the old Jianxia who fell in the Great Wall of Jianxi, who he is now in the Yuaning state. The old man also took 2 children from the Great Wall of Jianxi, the young Yedu and the girl Shuezhou. At this moment he was scolding a fellow Jianxiu who had just arrived at the inn. Yeah, this is not Situ Jiu, the great sword immortal with outstanding military exploits. Rare visitors, if I remember correctly, our hidden officer only invited me and Song Pin to come out of the mountain this time, but we didn't invite you here. Come by myself? As the only nascent soul stage, just shut up and don't talk to Yupu Jianxiu. The Hermit Lord saw you most admiringly. He is really kind. I'm afraid that your qualifications will delay Situ Great Sword Immortal's step into the Ascendant Realm. You are not willing to accept your apprentice. No wonder you speak so aggressively. Come, I will punish you for a bowl. If Situ de Jiangxian is still unsatisfied, I will kneel on the ground and give you a toast to the elderly. In fact, there are several old Jianxiu from various continents who have never been to the Great Wall of Jianxi in the house, all of whom are xuanhuan and the others on the mountain, who know the roots and have the same temperament. It's just that they are squeezed in this room today and they have no turn to speak at all. In fact, before Situ Jiu arrived, Yu had already been scolded by Pu He, pointing to the nose to curse. And Xuanhua also feels that Yu is a bit untrue, and she has the face to run to the Luapa mountain to dig for the foot of the wall, and even swiftly ascends first to find an enshrined status. Why don't Yu Lao Jianxian simply ask for a deputy chief Dang Dang? This made Lao Jianxian Yu, who originally wanted to show off to Lao Pu, wanted to dig a hole in. You must know that Yu had been to the Great Wall of Jianxi battlefield anyway. All the remaining 6 or 7 Howren old Jianxiu simply did not dare to breathe, watching their noses and hearts one by one, each silently drinking tea. It's not that there are no old people who want a polite greeting. After all, there are some sword immortals who have never been masked, but have long heard of famous names such as Xie Songhua from the Aizhou Island. Only soon they discovered that whether it was Xie Songhua who was rumored to have killed a Yupu realm sword repair demon clan in the Great Wall of Sword Qi, or Song Pin who was extremely beautiful and carried a swinging sword, they were too lazy to talk to anyone. In addition, these old people from their hometowns who would be called sword fairy, are indeed curious about the sword fairies of the same age. It is a pity that Li Kai, a female sword fairy from Luzhou and Beiju, did not come. I heard that she had accepted 2 disciples, and she was also very qualified. One of them even had the nickname of the Little Hermit. Almost everyone is here, let me talk about the meaning of Lord Hermit. Song Pin suddenly said, in fact it's the same thing. Whoever makes money, how to make money, don't care about it, but if anyone has the thoughts and actions of I can't get it, no one wants it, then do it. Pu He smiled while stroking his beard, it must be the original words of the hidden officer. Song Pin smiled and said, actually, the original words of the hidden official are to let us be reasonable. Puha immediately clapped his hands and exclaimed, the original words are better. Situ Jiu couldn't help cursing, why didn't you kneel at the entrance of the summer palace? Pu He sneered and said, I have fallen and I have to heal my wounds, otherwise I will definitely have a place in the summer palace. Unlike some people who fish on the battlefield. Yu always felt that Pu Lauer was scolding himself. Xie Songhua smiled and said, being able to pick up rags on the battlefield is also a craft. Song Pin took the lead to get up and said calmly, leave. At the curtain of the sky, a sage who was in charge of the saint in Tongyi's Hao, nodded with the swordsman in the blue shirt and said, The Saint of Rites once instructed to allow the hermit to go to the colorful world within Jiazi without consumption. Battle exploits. But I don't need to take the initiative to remind the hermit, it will be invalidated after expiration. Qin Pingan thanked him and then was about to ask about it. The sage of the Confucian temple had already laughed first. Is anyone going to swim with the hermit? Why didn't I see it? At this moment, beside Qin Pingan, there was actually an entourage with a yellow hat, blue shoes and green bamboo stick standing next to him. Qin Pingan understands. Xiao Mo changed his body in an instant, and a snow-white spider lay on the shoulder of the green shirt. The sage of the Confucian temple smiled and reminded, remember not to stay too long. Qin Pingan nodded and said, it will be the beginning of spring in a few days. The juniors will definitely go back quickly. Qin Pingan lowered his head and glanced at the mountains and rivers of the earth, converging his thoughts. His blue shirt and big sleeves swayed in the wind and stepped into the gate. The old man gave a secret applause, and the young man had a good demeanor. The bottom of the sleeves has the color of the sea, and the brows are blue to see the marks of the sky. A colorful world soaring to the city. Someone revisits the old place and it is also regarded as hometown in a foreign country. Sword of Coming Chapter 9-11. The upload is too late. Flying City. Business in the wine shop was good today, and two groups of people came to the front and back. As soon as the bachelors including Fan Dach and Wang Xinshui took their seats, several women including Situ Longqiu and Luozhini came. Without having to look at Zheng Dafeng, the shopkeeper, Fan Dach and the others took the initiative to give the latter the last seat at the wine table, obediently go to the side of the road and squat to drink, and listen to some stories about the gods fighting on the bed with their Dafeng brothers. Never thought that Zheng Dafeng had gone to sit down beside the wine table. An old Jindanjian Shio sitting on the side of the roadside. This old bachelor who is not young can drink a bowl of wine for a long time. Every time I hear the story of Zheng Dafeng, there is at least a bowl of wine left. Most of the bowl, pricked up my ears and heard of the treasurer, the old man came along and sighed with emotion. He never thought that the old man would hear these things in this life of cleanliness and self-care. After Zheng Dafeng took his seat, he was already sitting on the edge of the long stool. A female Jianxio still got up immediately and turned to squeeze a stool with two friends. Zheng Dafeng lifted his hips silently and slid along the bench. It was warm. Before drinking, Dafeng's brother felt warm. When the woman saw this scene, her eyebrows were drooped, but the thought of cursing was useless. Maybe it would only make him worse, and she said something strange, so she raised her drinking bowl and drank a long mouthful of boring wine. Sitting opposite Zheng Dafeng, it happened to be the female sword repairer of the hidden official line of the Summer Palace, Luozhini. The woman's face, figure, temperament and kendo realm are nothing to say. Look left and right, front and back. Anyway, you look seductive. Probably the Luozhini in the eyes of the young man in Fei Xingcheng is Song Kaiyun and Zhou Cheng in the eyes of the old man at the Great Wall of Jianqi. Our acting shopkeeper Zheng Dafeng, not long after he first came to take over the wine shop, relying on only three things, quickly gained a foothold in the Great Wall of Jianqi. The appearance of thick eyebrows and big eyes, Yushu breeze, good gambling on the wine table, and two lists are made every few years. The top 10 fairies and 10 beautiful embryos are selected all in one go. Once every 2 or 3 years, Luozhini ranks in the top 3 of the top 10 fairies every time. As for the Dong Bu who didn't come to drink today, he was selected twice. The ranking was fluctuating and the gap was relatively large. The first time he ranked bottom, the second time he directly broke into the top 3. However, Miss Dong has been selected as the top candidate by Zheng Dafeng for the next selection that is about to be released. No way. Before Guizhuzhou left Wuxia Xianxia, he secretly gave a sum of money to the gods, saying that an old girl must be first this time, otherwise he really couldn't get married. The little girl also has the style of the heroine who does good things without leaving her name. She repeatedly told the shopkeeper, don't say it is her credit, the old girl really wants to ask, just say that it was the money that Deng Liang and Deng paid. Situ Longqiu asked. I heard that the hidden official said that there is a place called Yendang Mountain on Aquarius Island which has a very good scenery. What else will it be? The mountain of the prince? Before, she and two boudoir friends asked Qin Pingan for tripartite seals. Her collection of book seals was related to a place called Dalangqiu in Yendang Mountain. Zheng Dafeng nodded and said, the scenery is really great. I have a chance to go and see it. Next time Brother Dafeng will help lead the way. Miss Situ, don't you know that there are many scholars in the world, but there are few serious people like Brother Dafeng? Situ Longqiu is the concubine of the Situ family on Taixiang Street. Before the war, she was only a sword repair at the bottleneck of the sea view. He broke through the city in this flying city, and then went out to experience the golden core in the colorful world. She and Dong must not be friends in the boudoir who talklessly talk. Among the younger generation of the Great Wall of Sword Chi, Situ Longqiu is not a genius, but the popularity is very good. As a result, she got a nickname inexplicably a few years ago. The name is a bit long, and she was said to be a landscape mansion on the Great Wall of Sword Chi. The nickname spread throughout the entire Ascended City at once, and it is said that it was first accidentally spread from the Summer Palace. In fact, it was the hidden official who accidentally missed his mouth in his early years. The famous doglegs in the Summer Palace were amazed by it and screamed at the case. After coming and going, it gradually spread. In addition, there is a Dong Bu in the Summer Palace. Can he hide his words? Guizhuzhou as a disciple is not in Fei Xingqiang, so of course she has to do it. Since the father pays attention to repaying the debts, it is even more logical to pay the debts of the teacher and the disciples. If there are any inexplicable and unsolvable grievances, I will come to me if I have the ability. So Guizhuzhiu's end is Dong Dong Dong. Jing Dafeng asked suddenly, Miss Situ, what do you think of Dafeng brothers? Situ Longqiu glanced at the man and said, I don't know if it's useful, but I don't see it anyway. How can Jing Dafeng dislike such a girl, such a flying city? Is really no different from hometown. Jing Dafeng raised his wine bowl. A beautiful woman can't believe it when she speaks, so she can listen to it as an irony. Luo Zhini gently stepped on his friend's foot under the wine table. The woman named Guanmei glanced at her friend and asked with a smile to Jing Dafeng. On behalf of the shopkeeper, Ningyao returned from Hao Rantian, but did not bring back any news? For example, Lin Junbai and the others returned to their hometown. How's it going? On the way, Luo Zhini asked her to help Jing Dafeng to ask about one thing, saying that she wanted to know what happened to the sword repair in the Summer Palace. Guanmei has a good impression of Jing Dafeng. Her speech is funny, and her temper is good. No matter who says it, he is not angry. He talks a little bit too much. Whenever she sees a woman with a good figure, she has to show her brilliance, but this the shopkeeper of the small wine shop is never frivolous. Jing Dafeng rubbed his chin, looking embarrassed. Calling for the shopkeeper, I was so distressed that I couldn't speak. Guanmei leaned forward quickly, poured a bowl of wine for Jing Dafeng. Jiao Didi said, Brother Dafeng, let me talk about it, I beg you. Jing Dafeng lifted the bowl with both hands to receive the wine, craned his neck, looked at the collar of the shirt and said, Sister Guanmei, if you say that, Dafeng will be sad. Brother Dafeng, do you need to ask for it? Guanmei deliberately kept the pouring posture and sat back in no hurry. She acted like a baby, shaking her scented shoulders. Say. The old lady is willing to give up for her friends. Hey, Dafeng's brother trembled and his eyes hurt. Jing Dafeng saw the girl sitting back. Ningyao didn't say much. Anyway, they went to different schools and practiced separately. But it seems like the boy Lin Junbai became the national teacher of the Xiaoyuan dynasty and became the youngest among the 10 dynasties of Haoran. It's not too much to say that the name moves the world. Chao Dagon is lucky. The sect is in Luxiazu. He has not been affected by the war. He is planning to open his next sect in Fuyazu. Maybe Chao Dagon will be able to do so. Making an exception to find a suzerain Dang Dang, Song Gaoyuan and Scrofulariaceae were nearly lucky. One of the sects is in Fuyazu and the other is in Jinjiazu. Now they are busy rebuilding the sect. As for repairing the old site or simply starting a new stove, I don't know. In the summer palace of the previous generation, the hidden official sword repairs. Qin Pingyan is a sword repairer from a foreign country. Lin Junbai, Deng Liang, Chao Dagon, Scrofulariaceae, Song Gaoyuan. Local sword repairs have troubles. Peng Yuanji, Dong Bu, Guizhuzhou. Gu Jianlong, Wang Xinshui, Su Ning, Luo Zhini, Chang Taiqing. Pick out one randomly and ask the sword with outsiders. It is both capable of playing and calculating. As long as the realms of the two sides are not very different, it cannot be said that the winning ticket is stable, but the chance of winning is definitely great. In Jing Dafeng's view, the two groups of young people who became hidden officials behind the sword repairers in the Summer Palace are still inferior to these predecessors. Guanmei waited for a long time and seeing that Jing Dafeng was only drinking with her head down, she wondered, is it all right? Jing Dafeng raised his head and said with a shy expression, some things can't be done with hard support? It's not a scholar who writes articles, simmering, holding back, there is always something. Guanmei was puzzled for a while, what is he shy about? It is a pity that Dong, who was not ashamed and ashamed as a child, had to be present, otherwise she is an expert and must know Jing Dafeng's thoughts. As soon as the group of women from Situ Longqiu left, Jing Dafeng's whole body collapsed. And finally he didn't have to deliberately strain his old man's unique charm. Otherwise, these young girls who have not been involved in the world may not be able to beat them. They can't beat them, they are just a pile of love debts, they can't be committed, it's unnecessary. Zheng Dafeng hurriedly turned his head and waved his hand. Hurry up, one by one is squatting in the pit, and if it is later, the stool will be cold. Zheng Dafeng kicked off his boots, sat cross-legged on the bench and asked, Xen Shui, are there any girls who make you think about it and toss and turn at night? A group of bachelors Pidian ran to occupy the position. Wang Xinshui shook his head when he heard the words, no. Zheng Dafeng shook his head and said, if your kid spends a little time thinking about the relationship between men and women, you won't be going to mess with Fan Dach. Wang Xinshui is of course a veritable genius sword repairer. The only problem is that his mind is too fast and his premonition is so accurate that he can't keep up with the speed of handing his sword at all. This delicate situation is extremely difficult to improve. So over the years, Wang Xinshui still likes to come here to drink boring wine to relieve worries. Fan Dach looked helpless and he asked me what to do. Zheng Dafeng took a sip of wine and chopsticks to serve the wine and vegetables. The salty is really salty. He quickly took a sip of wine. He turned around and asked, Dache, now walking on the street, I saw the kid calling you. Uncle Fan, what do you think? Fan Dach smiled and said, I don't have much thoughts, it's good. Zheng Dafeng rubbed his chin. I heard that Pang Yuanji, Lin Junbai, Chao Dagon, and of course the Mi De Jiangxian, all of them were very beautiful in their skins. I don't know if I have a 70 to 80% demeanor. After Fan Dach and his party left, the setting sun went down, and there were more empty tables in the wine shop, and Zheng Dafeng lay on the counter to settle the accounts. After Zheng Dafeng took over the wine shop, the business was actually okay, the money was not less, and the level of excitement on weekdays was the only one in Feishing City. Feng Kangle and Taoban are just two little rascals. They always think that the wine shop is not as lively as it used to be, and the difference is too much. Zheng Dafeng is also really suffocated. Now the entire Ascended City, there are only a few upper 5 sword repairs, and there are not many young Yuaning. This makes it difficult for clever women to cook without rice. Where can you ask me to find you a bunch of Yupu and Yuaning Jianxiu squatting on the roadside and drinking? Liquor shops are all old faces. Except for the change of the shopkeeper, there are still Qiu Rang, Lu Yi, Feng Kangle and Tao Ban. It's just Zhang Jiajin and Jiang who were taken to the world by the second shopkeeper in their early years. In fact, Qiu Long and Lu Yi have reached the age of marriage, and they have been procrastinating for many years. Later, Qiu Long finally listened to the words of the shopkeeper and collected the thoughts of being far away in the sky. It is better to be nearby. Take the person in front of you. The two were married a few years ago. Qiu Long married Lu Yi and Zheng Dafeng married, of course he even took the lead in making trouble in the bridal chamber. The young couple live a stable life and plan to earn more money and save more savings. They have to open a wine shop for husband and wife. Of course they will not open in Feishingcheng. They will choose one of the 4 border vassal cities. Most likely it was the Summer City. Because it was Jian Xiu from the line of the hidden official of the Summer Palace as the city lord, he was half of his own family. The wine shop really encountered something, so there was something to take care of. Jian Xiu, who just entered the Summer Palace, will come here to have a drink. This has become a customary rule, just like worshipping the mountain. Feng Kangle and Tao Ban, the 2 teenagers who used to help with miscellaneous tasks, have now become the second hands of the wine shop. Liquor shop still only has 3 kinds of drinks: the cheap Zhuhai Dongtian wine, the expensive Qingshanshan wine, the dumb lake wine with a knife, plus a plate of pickles and a bowl of yangchun noodles for no charge. The wine bowl is as big as before and the bench is as thin as before. It's just on the wall of the wine shop in 2 rooms side by side. Those innocent cards are still the same, there is no one missing or one more. Because Zheng Dafeng came to Feishing City and became a representative shopkeeper, after the wine shop was able to reopen, there is no such thing as the tradition of someone who has drunk the wine and wrote a no wrong card. It's like a mountain closure. Since there is really nothing wrong, there is no need to write a nothing card. At the beginning there were people who had troubles, both old patrons and new drinkers, but they were all useless. Zheng Dafeng bowed his head and bowed, apologized with a smile and punished 3 bowls of himself, but there was no card, so I didn't write it. Fortunately, the second shopkeeper secretly cultivated the wine to do in his early years. Most of them helped Zheng Dafeng to speak, come and go. As Zheng Dafeng is indeed a pleasing fellow, the guests gradually get used to it and stop embarrassing. This is also a foreign country. The treasurer of people and scholars. There are so many books on behalf of the shopkeeper, only to talk about certain aspects of the book on the door. 2 palms the cabinet is really incomparable. In other restaurants in Feishing City, I don't know where to buy a few bottles of genuine xianxia wine at a high price. They are regarded as the treasures of the town shop. Of course they also mean to fight with that small wine shop. The two are sold and soon people will go joining in after a drink. They scolded and left, almost unwilling to pay for the bill. Fake wine sell fake wine. Xianxia wine is not like this at all. One by one they were convinced and a bunch of chicks were pecking rice at the shop table and on the side of the road. The shopkeeper of the restaurant is going crazy. Until now, less than a jar of xianxia wine has been sold, and the restaurant will not be able to collect the capital, let alone making money. Zheng Dafeng glanced at the two people on the wine table not far away, eating a bowl of xianxia noodles, but did not treat him badly, knowing to add 2 poached eggs. Today's Taoban and Feng Kangol are actually the same strong guys who can pancakes on their butts, and they both have stubble. When I was a teenager and a child, Taoban actually asked the second shopkeeper a question, and when he came to the shopkeeper Zheng Dafeng he asked another question about the same, only turning the sword fairy embryo into a wuxia genius. Later Taoban asked another question that made Zheng Dafeng not know how to answer. Can I still see the second shopkeeper in this life? Because Taoban knows that he is neither a sword fairy nor a martial arts wizard. He is just an ordinary person who will soon become a middle-aged person. The old man may not be able to wait until the next time the colorful world opens. Seeing that Zheng Dafeng didn't say anything at the time, Taoban muttered to herself, saying that she was young and could not drink alcohol at that time, so she had never had a drink with the second shopkeeper. In the deep twilight there was a table of drunkies who got drunk and someone laughed and said, "Brother Dafeng, you always win your money like this. From the happiness at the beginning to awkwardness to heartache, now I am almost regretful." Zheng Dafeng thought about it, nodded and said, "Well, it's almost like love between men and women." Someone suddenly chewed out some aftertaste and shouted hello. Someone asked, "On behalf of the shopkeeper, you can tell us the truth. Are you good at gambling or making trouble without washing your hands all year round?" Zheng Dafeng was too lazy to talk and raised a middle finger. Someone started talking drunkenly, "To tell the truth of the conscience, I asked the second shopkeeper a punch, he couldn't beat me twice. The second shopkeeper hasn't come back yet, no one is sitting in the bank." The Great Wall of Sword Chi used to have 2 sayings, the old and the new. The old, respectively, are the good gambling products of the dog, the old deaf child speaks human words, Lu Ji's national beauty, the hidden official's pity and love, me yes affectionate can't keep it since ancient times. New, the young man of the second shopkeeper is not deceived and never sits in the village. Sidalonkius, I swear it is absolutely true. I see Long's Rong lousy to be fair, Dong Wafa's spending is like running water, and Wang Xinshur's no problem before the sword, count mine after the fight. Both the old and the new, there are foreigners on the list at the same time, and the 2 guys on the list are both scholars, but there are some differences. A Liang can't wait to see gentleman, scholar, and you think him not handsome because you have the look in your eyes. Question. These statements are carved on the forehead. Young hermits, on the contrary, never deliberately advertised their academic status. At the wine shop they vowed to say something with conscientiousness. I really have an average drinker. I never sit in the farm and persuade the wine to hurt the character at the table. You are a human being. You have to talk about your conscience and you have to talk about evidence. Later Fei Xingcheng, in fact there is a new saying of the 4 monsters. One is Ning Yao temporarily leads hermit, but he is not the lord of the city. Finally, as the second in command of the criminal officer, Nian Xian, whose true identity has not been able to tell why until now. I only heard that Nian Xian never speaks when discussing matters in the Patriarch Hall. Then there was Dustpan Zhai, one of the private residences of Jianxian outside the city in the past. 3 men dressed in women's dresses. Finally, the cultivators of Quanfus account room opened their eyes to picking up the money. They asked me to make money. The plaques that these monks hang in their account huts are very distinctive. What kind of heaven rewards hard work? Diligence can make up for one's weaknesses, wealth is abundant, and the sky is 3 feet high. Especially the latter 2, their fame is spreading all over the world. Because Shizhou, Shueyu, and Jinjin, 3 immortal sword repairers, relying on a certain kind of master's magical power, the 3 masters and brothers took turns out of the city to search for the sword fairy embryos in the foreign country. And this secret method inheritance, the threshold is very high, and now only 2 of the dozens of direct disciples barely master it. Among them, Shizhou has actually been among the nascent souls. According to the will left by the master, he can already put on his normal attire. I heard that Shizhou had just put on her robes from the clothes shop in the past, and he still had time to go out to find someone to drink, but the 2 juniors came to the door and almost turned against him, and had to continue blessed and shared. Thanks to the direct disciples collected by Shizhou and Junior Shuiyu, they asked a very good question that year. As a result, all the disciples have to wear women's dresses with the master. So these two big brothers are now the thorns of the same discipline. In fact, the term for monsters is interesting and interesting, fun and fun. I just don't know why everyone thinks it's not that interesting anymore. I always feel that something is missing. Maybe today's Feixingcheng, without the few old people who were once familiar with the sword repairs of the upper 5 realms, and the few old people with the sword spirit of the Great Wall, or it may be the 2 scholars who have received the most scolding. It's like cursing someone. If from beginning to end, you are the only one swearing with your hips akimbo, spitting, and no one will return your mouth. In the end you will feel tiring. So someone has to scold it. Xuanhuan and Zhao Guiyin, are they old swordsmen who can curse people? But the second shopkeeper, if you add them together, it's not enough. Now Qi Shou, the head of the criminal officers line, heard that he was just sitting at the head of the city and he didn't do anything or said a word. He was only injured by both sides of the quarrel and was innocent. He was almost scolded by Chen Quan. Feces. Jianxi Great Wall treated the young hidden official either like it or hated it, and there was no third kind of person. Of course, there are also those who have been cheated and those who have not been cheated. There used to be a monk in Xuanfu who didn't know whether he wanted money to lose his heart, or to admire the second shopkeeper for a long time. One night, a young man sneaked up to come to the wine shop and stole the couplet from the second shopkeeper, of course. I didn't forget to carry a pair of fake couplets with me. As a result, the little thief was caught by Zheng Daifeng's neck. After that, he went to the wine shop for a month of drinks before writing off the account. Zheng Daifeng turned his head and looked at the street and sighed. Today's Feixing city, roughly 3 hills have been shaped. Are the 3 forces of criminal official, hidden official, and Xuanfu. Ning Yao temporarily holds the position of hermit, and now the number of sword repairers in the Summer Palace has reached 20. However, in Zheng Daifeng's view, a soaring city still has many hidden worries. Just talking about the hidden official line, there is a lack of a second-in-command who really convinces the public. Although Luozhini is a sword repairer in the nascent soul realm, and she is almost certain that she will be among the 5 realms, because of her personality, Ning Yao is not soaring. When I was in the city, in the Summer Palace, I encountered endless disputes. It was difficult for someone to make a real final word. It was not that they were not smart enough, but that everyone was smart, but no one could do the well-deserved smartest. In addition, the new hidden official line of the Summer Palace can hardly be restored to the intimacy before, and the atmosphere is much deserted. For example, on the small hill that first approached the new hidden official that year, there were 6 sword repairmen. Besides Gu Zhujiu and Mi De Jiangxian, there were 4 others. Gu Jinlong and Wang Xinshui plus Chao Dang Scrofulariaceae. 2 natives and 2 foreign villages for young swordsmen, known as the 4 big doglegs of the Summer Palace, worked together to honor Gu Zhujiu as the leader of a certain gang. Today's summer residence, how could such a scene appear? After all, there is neither Qin Pingan nor Miao Jianxian. Ning Yao is the number 1 person in the world and the only ascension monk in the colorful world, not to mention the sword repair. However, facing those trivial matters, it is difficult for Ning Yao to be thorough in all aspects. Moreover, this really shouldn't be what Ning Yao needs to do. In addition, the chief worshipper Deng Liang is invisible, and gradually draws up a hidden mountain. It's not that Deng Liang wants to compete with someone for power out of selfishness, but some general trend. In addition, the general trend of the world is becoming more and more clear, and there are constantly foreign monks coming to Feixingcheng. Although there are 4 vassal cities blocked and guarded by layers, all kinds of infiltrations are endless and it is impossible to prevent. In addition, the entire ascending city has not realized one thing. Except for the handful of sword fairies on the table or all sword repairs, those who can really determine the future direction of Feixing City are actually those humble ordinary masters. Zheng Dafeng knows some inside stories that ordinary sword repairers do not know. Not long ago, Ning Yao suddenly left Wuxia Tianxia with a sword, and then returned to Feixingcheng from Haoran Tianxia. She convened a meeting of the Patriarch's Hall. After Jingxiang, Ning Yao only said a few words, and was shocked by the 40 people who had seats. Chen Pingan took her, Qi Tingji Lu Ji criminal officer Haosu, and by Yujing's 3 heads to teach Lu Shen, and they walked the barren hinterland together. Smashed the fairy hairpin city into 2 pieces, killed the ascended realm great demon mysterious garden, opened the Suyua mountain with the sword, and killed the culprit of the wild great ancestor's disciple, and a round of Mingyue Haotsai was moved to Qingming world. As for how the group of them did it and who did one of the feats, Ningyao didn't say anything and soon changed the subject and started discussing other things. Even if Jian Xiu from the hidden official line asked about it afterwards, Ningyao did not reveal the secret, only that you would ask someone in the future. Anyway, she didn't make much effort during this long journey. One of the meetings of the Patriarch Hall was about the selection of the calendar. The first year of a world, the name is Jiachuan, which was established by the Confucian Temple. Xianxia was originally a brand new site that Confucian sages paid a great price and painstakingly opened up, so no one had any objections to it. However, the Confucian Temple did not intervene in the compilation of the almanac. Instead, it was handed over to the local forces of Xianxia. This is not a trivial matter, especially if this almanac can pass through the world. It can occupy a share of, according to the will of heaven, the precious time. In the two worlds of Haoran and Qingming, changes in celestial phenomena have been related to the rise and fall of emperors in the world since ancient times. Therefore, compiling calendars and assigning time to the heavens is a major measure known as the establishment of Xinxua. Therefore, Qingtian prisons in various countries have been installed. The arithmetic and arithmetic department uses arithmetic and arithmetic methods to calculate the degree of the heavens. Bai Yujing Taoist priest first released an almanac, which has been widely circulated in the colorful world. Ensui Chu Gong teamed up with Xian Du Guan and also compiled a tit-for-tat almanac. In addition, Fuyazu and Tongishis, subjugated refugees, have also released as many as a dozen different versions of their almanacs. Ningyao suggested using the almanac compiled by Sui Chu Gong and Xuanhuan in this meeting of the Patriarch Hall of the Feishing City. On the contrary, no one has any objections except for the sword repair of the hidden official line. All the members of the Patriarch Hall looked at Ningyao one by one. Most of them looked complicated, curious, and doubtful. It seems to be asking Ningyao about something, but our hidden official? Ningyao can't laugh or cry. Do you really treat him as omniscient and omnipotent? In the twilight, Fan Dach left the wine shop. After separating from his friends, he walked alone on the street that didn't know whether it was more lively or deserted than before. The single Jindan Jianxiu did not return to his house or go to the summer palace. Looking at the archives, I just wandered around until late at night. I returned to the door of the wine shop. It was already closed and sat at the wine table outside the door that was never accepted according to the old rules. Nianxin was sitting in a daze in a small house. The Zhu Shitang passed a resolution before, and she now secretly controls a new prison, which is similar to the old deaf children before. A woman who was said to be an old girl sat on the railing of the high boudoir, watching the faintly lit up city. She held a delicate ball fan in her hand, fanning lightly, a touch of melancholy. At the time when the summer palace divided the accounts, Dong could not get the fan in his hand. The precious light was flowing and the words on the fan were beautiful. Jin Lian Lian Yu Tuan Tuan. I am stubborn, sleep in the moon palace, go to Gue Pasua, humanity is more clear. This night is the most reunion with millions of lights. If you say that young hidden officials are giving off public welfare for private purposes, it is not counted. No, it is because the hidden officials' sword repairs are all obtained by real combat achievements. Forget it, because the hidden officials have left some good things to them. Own people. I have been living in the summer palace all these years, Luozhini, and sitting at the table at the moment holding his cheek, there is an ancient inkstone on hand which is also a short distance away. This Fangquilong pattern moth-eaten inkstone is engraved on the top of the inkstone platform, with the seal of appreciation. The cloud is standing on the water and the text is deep. Su Ning and Chang Taiching were drinking together elsewhere in the summer palace. The two friends talked about everything, but both intentionally or unintentionally bypassed the young hidden official. Why can a foreigner who was not a sword repairer be able to sit down? Just saying one thing, Su Ning always thinks about it and feels complicated. All the sword repairs on the Great Wall of Sword Qi in the past, and even all the people who were not sword repairs in the small streets and alleys, as long as the summer palace has archives, the young hidden official remembers it clearly. If you just remember a name and a general resume, it's nothing at all. The problem is that the hidden official is connecting everyone in a line, just to find someone who may be a wild and dark chess. Qi Shou is not in Feishing City at this moment, but standing on the head of Toyue City, with his hands folded, looking out at the sky, staring at the sky all day. In his view, some carefree genealogists on the road of practice, if they go down the mountain and have not many experiences, they may be 100 years old, and they are really just cultivating embryos. It is necessary to talk about the mind, especially the human affection and sophistication. It is estimated that they are no better than many weak men under the mountain. Fortunately, The young sword repairers who ascended to the city are growing up at an extremely rapid rate. Everyone is determined to forge ahead and is committed to opening up new territory. Sword repairers are constantly making mistakes while showing their sharp edges. Fortunately, this is a brand new world. No matter the place or time, the sword repairers of Feixingcheng are allowed to make mistakes. In addition, Dangliang, the chief consecration of Ascension City from the awe-inspiring world, served as an excellent bridge. Now 8 hills have been opened up and 4 more cities have been built. With Feixing City as the center, a circle of mountains and rivers with a radius of thousands of miles is drawn. In addition, there are 4 enclaves that are extremely far away from Feixing City. They have gained a firm foothold. Those who are stationed in the sword repairs have not handed swords to outsiders for 2 full years. Qi Shou suddenly patted the brand new city wall, narrowed his eyes and smiled. Finally, they are all new. The Qin family mansion on Taixiang Street. A young man named Qin Ji, who had nothing to do with him, looked at a scholar's note in the study, which was bought by Yuanyu Jianxiu at a low price from the remnants of Tongyi's Hao. There is a close-knit maid standing silently in the house, but she has recently entered the Yupu realm from the Yuanying realm back then. So Qin Ji, who had been stuck in the nascent soul realm, took a Yupu realm sword repair as his major disciple in this life. Give the surname Qin the name Hui. Oh, the last day of each month. Means that she can stay high and far and truly achieve long-term vision, so she can stay in Feixing City and become a backup at a certain critical moment. Qin Ji or Qin Shi in the previous life, after the reincarnation of the soldiers, used secret methods to make up for his soul and soul. Since his soul has changed, his temperament will inevitably change, so he is not particularly anxious to become the first lord of Ascension City. I just hope that Qi Shou or someone can carry the burden. As for Ning Yao, forget it, she definitely won't be a city lord. In fact, in today's Ascension City, many sword repairmen would fight for the old sword fairy Qin Shi. If it weren't for beheading an ascended great demon empress, Qin Shi was trapped in a siege and was led by 2 old thrown great demon and a large group of wild monks to death. In the end, after beheading another sword repairman in the Jade Purity realm, he had to be disbanded. Then Qin Shi could become the first sword repairman in the history of the Great Wall of Sword Qi with 2 engravings. Qin Ji certainly doesn't care about this kind of thing. One of the 8 vassal hills outside the city, Zifu Mountain. Deng Liang stood in front of an ancient stone tablet, looking at the 2 lines of ancient seal script. 6 Dong Danxia Profound Book, Sanqing Zifu Green Chapter. Take out a jade box from the sleeve, and it will be completely refined soon. If no accident, you can touch the bottleneck threshold of the Jade Pu realm. This is the Dao Yuan of Shenji and Xian. It seems that this mountain has been silently waiting for Deng Liang for thousands of years. Therefore, Deng Liang has cultivated here in recent years. A certain woman named No, since she couldn't ask for it, she didn't ask for it. Deng Liang entered the colorful world in the 7th year of Jiachuan, and served as the chief worshipper of Feixing City. At that time, Qi Shou also happened to be in the Yupu realm, but Gao Yu was still in the Yuanying realm. Deng Liang turned and left, taking a walk in the Zifu Mountain. The 5th world is too big and there are too few people entering this new world. It's like a huge lake just thrown into a few baskets of fish. Go to a tree, squat down on the ground and pick up a fallen leaf. Deciduous tree from abroad. Missing is like falling leaves on the ground, all looks the same but in fact they are all different. The shopkeeper said it well, unrequited love like a hanged, self-hanging rope, is thoughts, and the beam above his head is the sweetheart who can't ask for it. All unrequited lovesickness who have never fulfilled their wishes are hanged ghosts that never leave. Not scary, not harmful, only annoying, only worrying. Gao Yeho is now a sword repairman in the Yupu realm. Xuanhu merged the sword workshop Yifang Danfang of the Great Wall of Sword Qi in the past, and Gao Yeho became the well-deserved god of wealth in Feixing City. However, Gao Yeho didn't intervene in specific affairs. The monks in Quanfus family were mostly young people selected from the Yen family and the Nalan family who were really in charge of money and affairs. Among them, the number of sword repairers was small and the qualifications were average. Otherwise, it is not enough to come to Quan Mansion to make a plan, about it is to turn grief and anger into strength. Compared with ordinary Spring Mansion members, they have to pay more attention to the account book. Inside the Spring House, the lights were brightly lit, and Gao Yeho was sitting in her own account. He missed his sister a little. I don't know if she practiced smoothly at the Duckweed Sword Lake in Luzhou, Beiju, and whether she has found her favorite Rielang. Just thinking of the fact that Feixingcheng would prepare for the establishment of a college, Takano Ho was a little annoyed. It was not a money issue at all, so it was troublesome. In the night, at the southernmost city of the vassal, 2 monks from other villages came, a middle-aged man in a blue shirt and long gown and shoes, and a young man in a yellow hat, green shirt and green bamboo staff. There is a stall at the gate of the city. There is nothing to say about the colorful world today, but in accordance with the rules set by Feishing City, all visitors must sit down here and write clearly their origin, name, road number, and hometown. Hometown, under the mountain, the more detailed the better, anyway no less than 300 words more is better, even if the hour is written. It is also considered skill, the number of words is more, and you can drink a pot of wine prepared long ago, like that the summer city to the north is a pot of Dumb Lake wine. Here it is the wine made by the Yen family. Behind the stall, on a bench, sat 2 young sword cultivators, 1 male and 1 female, not high in realm, and one of them was not even a middle 5 cultivator. Who is coming? I don't understand. The man gestured in the north-south direction, roughly asking where he came from. If you come from the north, your hometown will be Fuyazu, otherwise it will be the famous street in Tonggishao. The green shirt guest said in Ijo's elegant words, Father Tong Yejo, Do-e. Follow the stranger. The man endured the discomfort in his heart, and asked in a crappy Tong Yejo Yayan, Do you know the rules here? I just came here, I don't know. The man picked up a piece of paper, turned it over, and swiped it forward on the table. Follow the items above and write clearly one by one. As soon as I heard that the other party was Monk Tong Yejo, his face was not very good, but he didn't say anything badly at all. If it wasn't where his duties were, he would change to another place without looking at him. So the man who claimed to be Do-e sat on a long bench, sat across the table with the 2 jianxio, and began to write with a pen. The young man remained calm but asked the woman next to him with his heartfelt voice, How does this character read? The woman said helplessly, I don't know, it's the first time I have seen it. The man couldn't help but cursed in his heart, Gu-ris scholar. As expected, he is the from Tonggishao. The woman nodded lightly, agreeing. I never thought that the green shirt guest wrote more and more vigorously. He asked for a piece of paper and another. It was not over yet. Every time the other party finishes writing a sheet, the young jianxio stretches out his hand and takes one. Many of his words are uncommon and he recognizes Lao Tzu, but Lao Tzu doesn't recognize them. It's sour and sour. You treat yourself as our second shopkeeper. The woman jianxio looked at it with gusto. She wrote quite a bit of literary talent. Looking at the man in the blue shirt again, he is not handsome, he looks like Zhou Zheng, but after a few more glances, it becomes more pleasing to the eye. I really saw that the green shirt guest was too dedicated to his work. Looking at the posture, I can write a few more sheets of paper. Because it is only the last page, I can write about how this guy has repeatedly fought and failed in the imperial court. After repeated battles, I finally got the title on the gold list. In fact, it has already exceeded 300 words. The man couldn't help but ask, Can you drink alcohol? If you can drink, just rest for a while and write slowly. Drinks are not accepted. Money. While holding up a pen to write, the man raised his head and smiled, I can't drink enough. Forget about it? Drink, why don't you drink? Anyway, you don't charge money. The woman smiled when she heard the words and helped to pour a bowl of wine. The man in the green shirt puts down the brush in his hand, twists his wrist lightly, turns his head and invites, Xiaomo, sit down and drink together. You have to wait a while for your resume. Your writings are like a fountain tonight and you can't stop it. The young entourage with the weird name sat on one end of the bench, sitting with his dreaded, took the wine bowl, and then smiled and nodded with the woman jianxio in thanks. Lifted the bowl and took a sip of the drink. The man in the green shirt suddenly squinted his eyes and asked, It's not surprising, why did I suddenly understand your Mandarin in Feishingcheng? The woman smiled and said, It's not surprising anyway, it has already been sent to the city by flying swords. It turned out that the man jianxio deliberately switched to Feishingcheng Mandarin when he asked the other party whether to drink, and the green shirt guest was really stupid and took the bait. Chen Pingan nodded, the sword repair of the criminal officer's line is very good. Brother Chisho is fine. They are all good brothers who have been in business. I must miss myself very much. Chen Pingan suddenly heard a cold voice behind him, Is the wine good? Probably means in fact I want to ask him if he is so troublesome, is it fun? Do you want to visit the 4 clan cities and 8 hills before you go to Ascension City? Then why don't you just go to Xuanduguan and Sui Chugong to sit for a while? You have many friends anyway. Then when we arrive at Feishing City, sit down in our own restaurant, stroll around in the summer palace and take a look at the cold palace again. Xiaomo has stood up and moved a few steps across. The 2 sword repairmen across the table looked at each other and then quickly got up. How did Ning Yao come? Then the two swordsmen saw that the green shirt lifted one foot and turned around and got up again, smiling and reaching out to Ning Yao. Ning Yao raised his brow. What do you mean? Qin Pingan smiled and said, take your heart. Ning Yao glared and said, something's wrong. The two sword repairmen and the city guarding Jianxia with a wave of imperial swords were a little dumbfounded. Did this guy drank too much wine from a certain liquor store and drank his brain stupidly, dare to talk to Ning Yao like this? Take 10,000 steps and say, even if Ning Yao doesn't hack you to death if the second shopkeeper finds out, TSK. Qin Pingan shook his sleeves lightly, removed his blindfold and restored his true face, clasped his fists and smiled. Everyone, it's been a long time. The sword repairman who had thrown away his sword in the air immediately fell to the ground, and everyone clasped his fists and said solemnly, I have seen a hidden official. Regardless of whether Ning Yao is temporarily leading hermit, the two of them are a family anyway. Furthermore, no matter how you feel about the young hidden official, whether it is good or bad, everyone has to recognize that he is the last hidden official of the Great Wall of Sword Qi. A city, the sword lights all around in an instant, and at the same time the lights are lit up in sequence, extremely noisy for a time, and chaotic sounds one after another. The hidden official returned. Really? I'm a wine holder if I lie to you. The second shopkeeper of Goori, take me in the shop. The second shopkeeper, there are people selling fake wine in Feishing City. You don't care about it? I can help lead the way. I said it a long time ago, the hermit is reluctant to bear our drinks here, there is nothing good in the world, don't leave if you come. Perhaps in the heart of Jianxiu of Feishingcheng, the hidden official of the Great Wall of Jianxi is no longer Xiao Yin, or even Ning Yao, it may have always been the one standing alone at the head of the city, the one who is not human or ghost waving away from the whole Feishing City. The young man in China, the guy named Qin Pingan, is both a foreigner and a native of hometown. Sword of Coming Chapter 9:12. The three people left this Wuxia city, and whistles suddenly burst from the top of the city. What's wrong with Ning Yao? There is no second shopkeeper. At the Great Wall of Jianxi, who didn't know that outside of Ningfu, Ning Yao still gave the second shopkeeper a lot of face. As for returning to Ningfu, whether the second shopkeeper would kneel on the washboard is a matter of our ass. On the way to Yufeng, Qin Pingan smiled and said, let's go to Fuxian Lake first. Today, Feishing City has two Xinjia ferry crossings, the summer ferry crossing in the northernmost summer city, and the foothills of Zifu Mountain, which is the site of Dengliang's cultivating Taoism. There is a ferry crossing on Fuxian Lake named Mihundu, one north and south, just do business in two directions. Summer Palace, Summer City, Summer Ferry. The naming of saves worry and effort. Ning Yao sullenly said, I didn't think of a particularly good name either. Qin Pingan nodded and said, if there are too many good names, it's really not easy to choose. Ning Yao glanced at Xiaomo. Xiaomo immediately explained, Madam, the reason why the sun did not go to Feishing City right away is because the sun is carrying the real name of the big demon, and is separated from the half of the city where Hadao is located, so he will be taken to Feishing City. The invisible Taoist rhyme in the realm is naturally repulsive, and even regarded as a potential hidden danger that is unpredictable for the enemy and ourselves. If the young man ventured into the city of Ascension, he would be mistaken for a questioning sword. Xiaomo pressed his hat on his head and said guilty. This matter is also blamed on Xiaomo's background. Coming here with the sun is like having the sun's identity as a big monster. Ning Yao was confused. Is it possible for an ascending realm to be like a monk who opens up and gives birth to a spiritual wisdom? Like the naive sword spirit of the fairy sword in the sword box behind her? It's just that she is an ascended realm monk, why don't you know this? Qin Pingan then explained it, just like the Liju cave of his hometown, he once gave birth to a golden incense little man, who was hidden in the locust wood sword box behind Qin Pingan, and finally handed it to the old man Yang. This kind of strange things, similar to the monk's Yuaning, was born with a lack of intelligence, ignorant and temperamental. It is difficult to distinguish between the enemy and the enemy. The land and water nurtures the other person, and the incense little man who ascends the city, of course, will only be more temperamental. Qin Pingan said, Shinji should be the only person who noticed this. He deliberately didn't tell you about it, so he must have considered it himself. At the beginning, Qin Pingan was lucky. He always felt that even if Feishingcheng really had this opportunity, he would not be able to resuscitate so quickly in just over 10 years. He was more in a state of sleep. Besides, Qin Pingan I also carried the hidden official jade plaque with him, which can indicate his identity to a certain extent, but even if Qin Pingan took out the jade plaque that symbolizes his identity and hung it around his waist, it can't be said to be ineffective, but the effect is not great. As soon as he approached Feishing City, Qin Pingan seemed to be facing a martial arts master who had reached the realm, and he seemed to be talking to Qin Pingan. Please stop, dare to get close, immediately ask for a punch. This means that if Qin Pingan rushes to Ascend City, it is equivalent to a questioning sword. With Xiao Mo by his side, entering Feishing City is of course not a problem, but Qin Pingan is willing to consume the slightest amount of Feishing City wisdom. That's why Qin Pingan planned to familiarize in the surrounding areas of Feishing City, and then go to Feishing City to find Ning Yao, and he had to say hello outside the city, explain clearly, and then find a way to ensure that the illusion is not harmed. Qin Pingan will enter the Feishing Cheng incense villain. Just from the perspective of a foreigner, you can choose 3 places to see if you can find some details to fill the gaps in Feishing Cheng. Just now, Wuxia City of the Criminal Officer Line, the Summer City of the Hidden Official Line, and the Xuanhu Line. The Ecstasy Crossing will walk around. Ning Yao is stunned, no wonder she felt in her heart before and always felt that something was wrong. Then the Yujin lifted into the sky and patrolled the surrounding areas, so Xiao Mo's figure was soon discovered. Ning Yao asked softly, "Why didn't you say it earlier?" Knowing this, she would not show up directly at the gate of Wuxia City. Maybe it has disrupted many of his plans. Qin Pingan smiled and said, "When I re-enter the Yupu realm, my situation will be much better. If I enter the fairyland someday, there will be no problem when I come to Feishing Cheng again." A nascent soul realm, it is difficult to really suppress the real names of those great monsters, especially in today's wild world. There are more ancient monks who are about the same age as Xiama. Among them are the real names of 3 great monsters who were sown back then. Ren Qinshin helped Qin Pingan sow his real name. Xiao Mo smiled and said, "In a few days, it will be the beginning of spring in the world of Hauran. It is also the time when the sun has just restored the nascent soul realm. Generally speaking, he should stay in the Shindu Mountain Dojo and continue to stabilize his realm. In the world, it is the young man who made a temporary intention, and Xiao Mo couldn't stop it. For Qin Pingan, for Qin Pingan, for Qin Pingan, for Qin Pingan, the 2 things of praying for rain on the ancient monument of Buried River." Ning Yao glanced at Qin Pingan. "So interlocking, how about singing double reeds? Did you 2 practice before coming here?" Qin Pingan aggrieved, "Heaven and earth conscience." Ning Yao asked, "Is it a good thing? Are there any things that need extra attention, hidden drawbacks?" Qin Ping's palm with a boxing hand nodded and smiled, "Of course it's a good thing and it's still a great thing. There are no sequelae and there are no advantages that outweigh the disadvantages. We can't ask for the Imo Dao fate. In fact, being so repelled by Feishing City is naturally a tricky thing for Qin Pingan, but for the entire Feishing City, it is a very good thing. Because this means that Feishing City not only has truly integrated into the colorful world, it has even been recognized by this world's avenue, and has won the favor of a kind of world and earth. Different from Baiyujing in Western Buddhism, only the monks stepped through the gate and entered the colorful world. The sword repairmen of Feishing Cheng brought a whole city, forcibly cut through the long river of time, and the imperial sword soared to this point. Just say one thing and you know how rare this gift of heaven is. Once there is that Ascension Realm great monk who wants to sneak into this place secretly, it will trigger some kind of heaven and earth anomaly. Ning Yao, as long as he happened to be in the city at the time, he could immediately notice something was wrong. This kind of mysterious guarding formation is simply aimed at all the 14th Realm and Ascension Realm great monks. And no need to consume the slightest aura of the sky and earth in Feishing Cheng, and no need for half a fairy money. When they arrived at Fuxian Lake, they fell into shape together. Qin Pingan squatted on the shore, holding water with one hand, condensed into a turquoise water ball, carefully inspecting the depth and flow of the water transport, and then twisting it with the other hand, holding a handful. The breath of heaven and earth, turbid and confused, like clouds and mist lingering around the fingertips. The most important thing about the construction of the Xinjia ferry is hydrogeography. Like the ordinary ferry of the Linshui dynasty, they all look for the deep water port to determine the depth of the ship's draft, because a series of Xinjia ferry including their own Nujiadu Qin Pingan was at least half an expert, let go of his hands, looked up around, a ferry crossing without any traces of craftsmanship, looked extremely rough. This is actually right. Determine the general direction, build the framework, and everything is pragmatic. It is enough that the ferry can be anchored and set sail. Today's Feishing City, in all aspects, is far from the point of excellence. It is something that will be considered after at least 100 years. A sword light cut through the night sky and fell to the foot of the mountain. Deng Liang held his fists high and said loudly, I have seen a hidden official. Looking at the man in the green shirt, Deng Liang was in a good mood and this guy finally came back. There are some things, Deng Liang really wants to deal with the guy in front of him, spit out bitter water. An ascending city, intricate relationships, several meetings of the Patriarch's Hall in recent years only talking about the Summer Palace. It is not Ning Yao who is the temporary hermit official, and it is not easy to negotiate, but it is too easy to negotiate. It is nothing more than a matter of success or failure, and it is never procrastinated. Just getting used to the atmosphere of the Summer Palace in his early years, Deng Liang always felt that something was missing. As the number one person in the world, Ning Yao's realm is too high. On the road of spiritual practice, she rides the dust, making it hard for everyone to look forward to. It is like a towering tree with shades of the city. In fact, even Dong can't. They, deep in their hearts, would not really regard Ning Yao as a hermit with a pure identity. And some of Ning Yao's ideas, such as swordsmanship-like practice like handing swords on the battlefield, are straightforward. In the former Summer Palace, from Qin Pingan to sorrowful Miao Jianxian, to Lin Junbai and Dong Wubu, all the hidden officials have the same line of sword repair, and they complement each other, no matter how different their personalities and backgrounds are, whether they are local or foreign sword repairs. As long as it is one thing, it is often everyone who is put on the table to discuss it. Not only can it solve the immediate matter, but it can also solve the 3, 5, or even all related matters in the same context. Furthermore, Deng Liang has been away from his hometown for many years, and he also wants to know some recent conditions of Judu Mountain from the hermit. Qin Pingan handed his hand back and smiled. I have seen Chief Deng climb together on Zifu Mountain, which was once in ancient ruins, and came to the top of the mountain. Qin Pingan squatted in front of the stone stele. Deng Liang squatted aside and said openly, "Don't blame me for doing my own business for personal gain. I will grab this opportunity even if I grab it." Qin Pingan tweeted, "This is not the right thing to say. It's like a jar of wine that has betrayed the line of the hidden official and surrendered to the enemy criminal." Scolded, pointed the finger at the top of the criminal officer's line. "The Chisho of the Dog Day digging the wall and foot to our summer residence. It is wasteful of my mind to treat him as a good brother." Even if Deng Liang has heard it, Chisho has also suffered for 8 lifetimes. The guard met Qin Pingan that year, and then the two sides began to point their needles at the wheat mang. As a result, Chisho happened to be neighbors with Qin Pingan and Xuanhuan when he was stationed in the city. There are so many old sword repairs in the Great Wall of Sword Qi. They are famous for being not afraid of the sky. Xuanhuan must be one of them. Because he has fallen across the border, he has an old sword with a flying sword, solid solution, and the nickname Qi Shanglu. On the side of Xianxia Tingji, Xuanhuan has always spoken without restraint. Qin Pingan still looked at the inscription on the inscription. There are not many words but many meanings. Moreover, the first and the body of the monument are all knowledge, which can help future generations to come to generation and identify the year. Before you plan to leave Feishing City, you must come here to build the monument, and go back to Lu Jinglong to study and study. Anyway, there is everything within a short distance, and the work can be completed in a quarter of an hour. Qin Pingan handed over a jar of wine, which was given by Aunt Feng. Deng Liang knew the goods and caught the wine jar. Yes? Qin Pingan nodded, guessed correctly. Deng Liang held the wine altar in his arms and did not hesitate to stretch out his hand again. "Give another altar, I will drink another altar and leave another altar. When you turn back, you will help me to give it to the Judu Mountain Patriarch Hall. It is of great use." He knocked out Deng Liang's palm with his elbow and Qin Pingan smiled and said, "Being the chief worshipper, the skin is different. Okay, I have reserved 2 jars of 100 flower stuff for you. When I travel to Aizhao in the future, give it to Judu Mountain in your name." Deng Liang entered Feishingcheng in Jiachuan 6 years later, almost a year later than Zheng Dafeng. Deng Liang's meeting ceremony for Feishingcheng was not light. He brought a large amount of mountain materials unique to Judu Mountain, 60 altars of secret brewing swadan wine, 300 pieces of ghost charms known as the Golden Book of Green Tendons, and 800 gene of Xinjia rice, named Zhongxi Mi in Qin Pingan's view, if fermented rice and talisman are considered to be the icing on the cake, but those rice seeds are actually sending charcoal in the snow. Now in the Zifu mountain boundary and Wukuei city, began to grow the Xinjia rice widely. Many ideas coincide. The only problem is that the current Feishing city is dedicated to expansion. The Zhu Shirtang did not accept some of the suggestions of the chief worshipping Deng Liang, but could only temporarily shelve it, or did not pay enough attention to it. This is also normal. There are too many things that need to be done and things that can be done at hand. In fact, the 3 vain monks of Feishing City have done a good job. Declined Deng Liang's invitation and did not go to his mansion for a drink. Now Deng Liang also collects 2 disciples and a group of registered disciples. He is determined to establish the next sect for Jidu Mountain. Yufeng left Zifu Mountain. On the way, Ningyao spoke with Chen Pingan with his heartfelt voice. Chen Pingan immediately asked Xiaomo to go to Feishing City first, and then sacrificed a caged bird. Ningyao blushed, took off the golden robe on his body, took off the sword case and handed it to Chen Pingan. It was like a very special customs clearance document to help Chen Pingan enter Feishing City. Chen Pingan was just blindfolded, and Ningyao had already put on a robe that was made by the clothes shop in the past. Ningyao said, "Don't delay your practice." Chen Pingan smiled and put on a golden robe, holding a sword box in his arms. Ningyao said, "I didn't joke with you. If this love lasts for a long time, how can it be in the dynasty? Especially for those on the mountain who hope to truly achieve long-term vision, decades of time are really not a big deal." Chen Pingan put away the caged bird, nodded and said, "Recently in Shindu Mountain, I have been more diligent in practice than ever before. It is almost the same as when I first started to learn xuanhuan." Ningyao nodded and said, "When I get home I will retreat, but as long as something happens I will knock on the door and it will not delay my practice." This is very unique and very Ningyao. Chen Pingan wondered, "Why do you want to retreat again?" It seems that since knowing Ningyao she has only retreats twice. The last time was not long ago. Ningyao was on the side of Dali capital and needed a solid ascent to the first level. Ningyao glanced at him and stopped talking. Chen Pingan became more and more weird. "What's wrong?" Ningyao said in his heart, "I want to prepare for the 14th level. The road is there. About 2 or 3 thresholds need to be crossed." Chen Pingan wiped his face and remained silent. Xiaomo should really listen. After tens of thousands of years of cultivation, he has not been able to find the road of pure sword cultivation among the 14 realms. "Xiaomo, are you ashamed and not ashamed?" Ningyao's mouth turned up and then quickly pressed down. "I heard that someone used to be on the side of Toyua Mountain, and said to the big demon culprit that if I were your age I would never see my sword." The speed of the 2 of them was not fast, so Xiaomo hid himself over the border of Feishingcheng, waiting for a long time. Compared with Chen Pingan, who bears the real name of the great demon, Feishingcheng's vigilance and hostility towards Xiaomo is not that great. This is actually related to the fact that Xiaomo's swordsmanship is too orthodox. After all, I really have to worry about it, not talking about the roots and feet of the Tao, only talking about the inheritance of the Tao. Xiaomo may be worthy of the brother of the elder sword immortal Qinqingdu. Ningyao took the 2 of them down to the martial arts field at home, and went to retreat on his own. Anyway, someone knew him well. Chen Pingan has already handed back the sword box to Ningyao. Rao is a big Ningfu. Looks more and more empty and quiet. 2 old people are missing and there is no dragon slashing cliff. Chen Pingan's house was cleaned up, and the bedding on the bed was neatly folded, without the slightest bit of decay. It should be because he would often take it out to bask in the sun. On the other side of the wing, on a table, there are still some plain chapters that were not able to be carved back then, piled up into a mountain, and there are several books, all of which are copied from the book and moved from the west to the west. If Yen Fatz's silk shop has a lot of business after a few months of work, it is estimated that 1 more book of 300 sword immortals will be published. At that time, Dong could not ask for a tripartite book seal for himself and his 2 boudoir friends, and the second shopkeeper who had been in the seal business. The other 2 women's sword repairs were Situ Longqiu and Guanmei. Dong didn't know how to be generous and directly gave Qin Ping a large piece of precious celestial material called Shuangjiang jade, which was heavy and weighed 7 or 8 caddies, and it was a valuable treasure in the world. According to the agreement, the remaining leftovers outside the 3-party seals will be used as the second shopkeeper's wages. As a result, those leftovers were carved out by Chen Pingan with a very small seal of 12 squares. With the 15th flying sword as a carving knife, 1 party would seal a small summer coin. Among them there is a collection of book seals of Guandao, but it's still a mystery who will get it now. If they are living in the vast world, some people of insight with unique vision will follow the 100 Swords Immortal and Jianxian imprints to according to the picture, and the inspection is correct and it is confirmed that it is the genuine product, just like the sandalwood palm of Pushan Yunkatang. Li touched it. It is estimated that he would not frown as long as he could buy it for a small amount of rain. Chen Pingan twisted the wick with 2 fingers, instantly lit a lamp on the table, then sat at the table, spread out the booklet and asked with a smile, "Xiaomo, Come and take a look. If you have any seals you particularly want, I can send it. Xiaomo sat aside, took the booklet, flipped through the pages carefully, stopped and smiled. My son, just this sentence. Chen Pingan turned his head and glanced at the print on the upper page of the book. It was the phrase, Qini is like a box out of Taiya. Xiaomo has a good vision and is quite picky. Lifting his chin again, Chen Pingan took out a brand new carving knife from his sleeve. During his leisure time practicing in the Xiandushan Taoist temple, he personally crafted and refined a carving knife. Pick your own seal, this treatment is not common. Xiaomo got up, chose a piece of the tallest patch as if the peaks were the highest, and handed it to Qin Ping, and Qin Pingan rolled up his sleeves, rubbed his hands and breathed back into his old career. I don't know if he would be unfamiliar. He did a few stretches of his arms. Since it was given to Xiaomo, it's not a money-making business, so he has to do it. Dessert. When Qin Pingan was at his desk for seal cutting, there was only the sound of rustling in a house. When his son twisted his seal with his 2 fingers, he finished the engraving of several lines of temporarily compiled margins, raised it a little bit and gently blew the seal fragments. Xiaomo whispered softly, my son, in Wuxia City and Toyue City for the time being. Nothing unusual. Qin Pingan just hummed slightly and continued to seal his head. Xiaomo was on the side of Wuxia City. As soon as Ning Yao appeared, Qin Pingan asked him to travel far away with Yin Shen, and then rushed to Toyue City with the body of Yang Shen to check the heartstring changes of the cultivators in the 2 cities. Is like an invisible rush. But at this moment, Xiaomo, who is sitting quietly at the table, knows that his son is not really willing to do this, but has to do it. And this temporary trip to go out for a long trip, the son is actually not worried about this vigorous ascending city, but worried about Ning Yao. As for the reason, the son only said a weird metaphor but did not elaborate on the reason. I just say it's a very troublesome guessing, the kind of guessing where the answers to the puzzles are given. Is related to the disciple that Huang Ting, the crowned female champion of Taiping Mountain, collects in this world. In fact, in Ningfu at the moment, in addition to Ning Yao, there is also a foreigner who is not a native of Feixingcheng, but the remnants of Tonggishao. To be precise, they are the descendants of those remnants who have taken refuge in the colorful world. Is a little girl who was born in a colorful world. So Wuxia Xianxia is now a few years old in Jiachuan. How old is she? Is the only disciple that Huang Ting collects here. The surname is Feng and the name is Yuanshao. It seems that because she was born on the Lantern Festival of the first year of Jiachuan, her father and mother gave such a name. Huang Ting didn't take it to Haoran at the time, so she gave it to Ning Yao to take care of her. The little girl was left at Feixingcheng Ningfu. Qin Pingan thought at first that she would be a little girl like Chai Wu, and she would have good monastic aptitude to be lawless. However, Ning Yao said that the young girl has a mediocre aptitude for cultivation, but she has a simple and honest temperament and is very pleasing. Generally speaking, Feng Yuanshao is unlikely to get involved in mountaineering if she does not meet Huang Ting, who has a deep blessing. But it was just that which made Qin Pingan feel uncomfortable. There are also several types of monastic geniuses. Ning Yao is a kind of extreme. The other kind is like Huang Ting of Tonggishao, he Xiaoyang of the gods of the past, and the wish of Zhongtu Shenzhou who has the nickname juvenile Jiang Taigong. Xiaomo suddenly said, I didn't promise the son to go to Fuyaozhou before. If the son is angry he will scold Xiaomo a few words. It turned out that Qin Pingan had discussed with Xiaomo and asked Xiaomo if he could take a trip to the Fuyazi mine to meet several Haoran sword immortals. Xiaomo did not agree. Since he is the dead man of his own son, there is no reason to leave the Xindu mountain boundary. He must stay close and stay by his side. Once the son's practice had an accident, Xiaomo would die hard to redeem. This is also Xiaomo who is very good at talking, and for the first time rejected Qin Ping's request. If you refuse this matter, I will certainly be a little depressed, but I will certainly not be angry. Under the lights, the son of my own son looked kind and gentle, shook his head lightly, smiled and said, Xiaomo, believe me, everyone should have their own life. Probably a good life is that we can be responsible for our own life. Right. Xiaomo smiled and said, the truth of the son is always right to think about. Qin Pingan shook his head and stopped speaking. When he finished engraving the seal, he took a deep breath, stretched his waist and asked with a smile, Xiaomo, would you like to have a supper? I will cook it myself and taste mine. Craft? Xiaomo smiled and nodded and said sincerely, I've been looking forward to it for a long time. Wait a moment. Qin Pingan stood up and went to the stove on the other side of the room, take out the prepared ingredients, eggs, green peppers, green onions, garlic, etc., roll up the sleeves, tie the apron, put the chopping board, arrange the dishes and separate them into categories. Xiaomo was only in the stove before. Looking at the door of the room, I feel pleasing to the eye. Chen Pingan quickly fried 2 large bowls of fried rice with eggs, brought them to the table in the hall, sat opposite Xiaomo and ate separately. Chen Pingan put down his chopsticks and saw that Xiaomo was still chewing slowly so he could eat slowly. Chen Pingan hesitated for a moment and asked, "Xiaomo, did you ever meet in a wild world that made you feel special? Weird Taoist?" Xiaomo swallowed a bite of food and wondered, "The sun, is it the barbaric world later, not the world under the old heaven?" Chen Pingan nodded, "It means the barren world later." Xiaomo shook his head. Seriously injured that year, Xiaomo left those caves in the wild world. Soon he went to Haotsai Mingyue and couldn't move. He never encountered any strangeness. The Taoist and things that Xiaomo can call singular, and the ascended monks who are called by the later world venerable, of course can't be counted. Is like the immortal way of, Taoist head don't be wooden hairpin. Didn't say anything about the wild new throne monster, even inside the old throne. If Yang Ji hadn't been saved by Junyan, Xiaomo would have been hacked to death when he said that he was hacked to death. As for the cause of the conflict between the two sides, it is also very simple. It is just a few words that Xiaomo ridiculed Xiaomo. He felt that Xiaomo's swordsmanship was improper, not as pure as Qin Qingdu and Yuanxiang. Yang Ji spoke to Xiaomo face to face, but it spread out accidentally and was heard by Xiaomo on the way, and there was that sword and chase after that. No way. Bai Zhe spoke in person and had to go. Not going? Bai Zhe is about to do it. In ancient times, a mountain Taoist from a demon clan, no matter how good his temper was, he couldn't get better. A few of Xiaomo were seriously injured at the time. What's more, even if they were not injured, they would definitely not be able to beat Master Bai, who never shot easily but fell apart with one shot. Otherwise, even the few fellow Taoists of the same age, including Xiaomo, would not be willing to fall asleep for a so-called healing. After all, that kind of retreat is a long hibernation that may not have a chance to wake up. Sleep and die in the true sense. Xiaomo asked cautiously, "My son, it's because of Fei Xincheng's rejection, what did you think of?" Chen Pingan said, without any hidden temptation. He directly told Xiaomo what he was thinking. "I guess that there is some kind of greatest overwhelming victory in every world, so the 3 masters of the 3 teachings went out for a long trip this time. It is very possible that one of the most important things is to talk about it separately." Xiaomo smiled and said, "So the son is still worried about his wife. The so-called puzzle is the little girl named Feng Yuanxiao? As for the 3 teaching patriarch, what he thinks and what he does, Xiaomo doesn't really care. He is just an ascendant sword repairer, and he hasn't reached the 14th stage yet, so he doesn't get mixed up." Chen Pingan smiled and said, "It's a precaution, but this kind of situation is not good or bad in a strict sense. Both sides are born and take advantage of the trend. To be precise, it is a relationship of mutual victory, not something. The relationship of non-enemy or friend and non-friend or enemy." Because in Gongdaland before, Mr. Chen Pingan heard a story from a very old age. Mr. said that when the most holy master traveled to study the world in his early years, he was passing by the river and met an old fisherman who ferried there. The two sides discussed the same. In the field, they are all holding their own opinions, and no one has been able to convince anyone. In short, the most sage master failed to cross the river by boat, and the fisherman went away alone. This seemingly small and old thing, there is no written record on the Confucian temple. In an allegory made up by Lu Qin, there was a description, as if the 3 masters of Baiyujing witnessed it with his own eyes. Mr. will never deliberately talk about the old almanac with the closed disciples in front of Jing Shengxiping. At that time, Jing Shengxiping also had a weird face, which helped to verify what Chen Pingan had in mind. Like the barren world, Chen Pingan guessed that Firen, this fellow, is most likely the existence of the ancestor who defeated the barbarians. But it is not ruled out that there is also an older and more hidden existence hidden, and now it has become a savage co-owner, only to win against each other. If it is the latter, then this savage man of Taoism is a bit younger than the savage ancestor Bai Zhe and Xiaomo. Because of this existence, the real Taoist age will only happen to be the same age as the wild world, and will definitely live the same life as the entire world. This monk who truly belongs to the birth and nurturing of heaven and earth, will live the same life as heaven and earth, be born in the same month and same day in the same year, and die in the same month and same day in the same year. And this Taoist who can almost be regarded as the place of the world's luck, and the first person in the world to cultivate the Tao, the relationship between the two parties will become very complicated and very delicate. If the roads of both sides diverge, it is an extremely dangerous road dispute. If the roads of the two sides meet, you can become a veritable friend of the roads. Xiaomo said, if you stay in a wild world, no matter whether you can determine the identity of this little girl, she must be dead by now. To be precise, life is better than death. She will be tightly detained by some secret method. After stripping off the 3 souls and 7 souls, there is at most 1 soul and 1 soul left. Let it be reincarnated, so as not to be too late to be counterattacked by a great road of the world. The rest will definitely be imprisoned in the world, and the end will be like that one. The first ancestor of the military strategists Qin Pingan said, then see you at the top of the mountain. Xiaomo smiled and said, I'm so lucky to meet the son and the wife. After, Qin Pingan walked out of the house alone, strolling in the courtyard, starry sky full of stars. Chen Pingyan unknowingly walked to the door of the mansion and sat in the small concierge. Impermanence of life. Ping Zong gathered and scattered. Nothing happened overnight. At dawn, an old golden pill came on the street outside the door. It was unexpectedly happy to see that the second shopkeeper was inside the concierge. There was no need to knock on the door and he was immediately happy. Second shopkeeper, I don't want to be the accountant and be the concierge. What about the penalty? What's the matter? He'll be treated as soon as I get back to the Jianghu Great Wall. Do you want me to talk to Ning Yao? Damage the majesty of the hidden officer. The second shopkeeper often drank at his own wine shop and was shut outside. There was an old sword who said that the second shopkeeper was pitiful, and when he came home at night, he should not knock on the door and dare not be hard. Chuang didn't even have the courage to sneak over the wall, so he could only lie down on the steps at the door and deal with it for one night. The second shopkeeper walked out of the concierge and leaned against the door with a smile on his face. Seeing that the opportunity was not good, the old monk threw a pot of wine at the same time as he trod up the steps, but was slapped back by the second shopkeeper. Lao Song, what do you drink early in the morning? Didn't Mrs. Bamboo hold enough? Well, it's a real second shopkeeper, so I can't fake it. Ordinary people can't tell the taste. The shopkeeper also speaks coquettishly, but it is not the same as the second shopkeeper. Sitting on the steps outside together, this old Song, of course, was one of the wine holders in his early years. It's an old golden pill from the Great Wall of Sword Qi. He used to be a monk from Danfang. He will also help record the military exploits. Good wine, good gambling. Wine is really bad. If you drink too much, you will tear your nose and tears. The gambling luck is worse if the gambling is worse, and every gambling must be lost. To say that it is the old golden core in fact does not mean how old he is. Before the formation of the core, he was also a sword repairer with quite good aptitude. When the old Song was still young, even if he was not a first-class genius, he was considered to be of his generation. The Junyan inside on the wine table always said that he had a good skin when he was a teenager, and Wu Qingpei and Miu would like to bow down. Many aging Yuanying realm sword repairmen, drinking in the liquor store, also like to call him Lao Song. My lord, how long do you plan to stay? Lack of money again? I'm talking about feelings, what about the money? Old Song, you are a golden pill anyway, so you didn't go to the criminal officer's line to get a messenger? I didn't go. I don't want to go to the Patriarch Hall of Feishing City. I don't have the face to sit there. You don't want to take the Summer Palace. I want to go. There is no way. The high is not the low. Just mix it up. You know. Yes, the son-in-law who walked out of a big portal like Chisho, didn't look pleasing to the eye. Xianxia was not less likely to be drunk by me in those days. I fished for a somewhat oily work in Laolin City. At least you don't need to look at the person's face. It's a pity that if you have some spare money, you will give it all to your wine shop. At the beginning of each month, you will have 2 pots of Qingshan wine. In the middle of the month, you will drink Zhuhai Dongtian wine, and at the end of the month you will drink the Dumb Lake wine. 1 month has passed. The current bunch of little bastards, as long as they are sword repairers, they don't even talk about whether they are sword fairy embryos. They are not high in realm and their eyes are on their foreheads. They see me, Lao Song. I don't even know about an appointment. The kid who used to wear open-crotch trousers, I saw you on the road, not a Lao Song. It's not the same, I can't tell you how it's different, it's just a feeling. Speaking of this, Lao Song couldn't help but drank a sullen wine. Second shopkeeper, isn't it too good? It's a good thing now, but I'm not sure whether it's good in the future. Then you are in charge. Some things you can only take one step and look one step at a time, otherwise it will end up with a what if, a mess full of resentment. Second shopkeeper, don't talk to me about these vain heads and finally come back, can't you? What do you mean by that sentence? Let's sit on the sidelines? No, it's not so literary. It's the native dialect from my hometown, standing on the shore watching the big water. That's right, that's the sentence. But it's easier to speak in your dialect. Run here early in the morning to block the door. Won't you be a bachelor just to show me that you are a bachelor? Isn't this a second shopkeeper? Lao Song, in the future you and Feng Qi and then go to the wine shop to drink. You can make an exception. I will say hello to Zheng Dafeng, but you guys remember not to publicize, otherwise the shop will not want to open the door to do business in the future up. This is good to dare to love. What do you want, just on credit, not for not giving money? I understand. You know what a fart, you owe you in the middle of the month and you pay back at the beginning of the month. As long as you can pay on credit, let alone know a fart, you don't know what a fart. Is this a matter of money? It's a matter of face, it's the only one. Second shopkeeper, it's better to make a discussion. Those of my friends don't take credit. They have money now so I can pay on credit alone. How about? Some of their acting skills are not good, and they almost show off their stuff several times. It's not a day or two for being scolded for a drink. Unlike me, if you know about it. Our relationship. Lao Song, you have been bachelor all these years and you have been scolded by friends as worse than dogs. It's not without reason. Not as good as the second shopkeeper, not surprising, I agree. Second shopkeeper, I won't return the scolding anymore. Don't be like that, I'm so embarrassed. Lao Song's real name, probably except for his old friends, many young people in Feishancheng don't know it now. After listening to it, they become accustomed to it. In fact, the name is very good, Song Yue. In the previous Howran world, the life and death of Jianxia of the Great Wall of Sword Qi did not matter at all. Today's awe-inspiring world, I always feel that the sword repairs of the Great Wall of Sword Qi are all extremely powerful and have countless battles. Not like this. In the history of the Great Wall of Sword Qi, there have been many sword repairs like Song Yue. It is hard to be really happy after drinking and it is not easy to win money. The problem lies in the flying swords of their sword repairs. For example, Song Yue actually owns 2 natal flying swords, and he is also a golden pill sword repairer. In theory, it is not bad at the Great Wall of Sword Qi. One is called Dragon Vessel, and the other is called Gold-Plated. The former can the latter. But he can only repair some troubled swords on the battlefield, just like adding a life-saving robe of magic treasure rank out of thin air. So after Song Yue entered the Middle 5 realm and before he became the Golden Core, it was only because of the gilded flying sword that fell twice in this life, and he had no hope of becoming a primordial infant in this life. A sword repairman like Song Yue is considered good. After all, he has been to the battlefield outside the city to fight. The natal flying sword of that sword repairer is named Weaver Girl, and he has stayed in the clothes shop for almost his entire life, only when he was young. Been to Qingtu. Fijian's natal magical powers are only related to tempering, so they can only be nestled in the sword workshop, living in a simple place and almost no friends. There are also some sword repairs, Fijian's magical powers, which are just like a joke, making people laugh and cry. Even if they go to the battlefield, they are like a sword repairer without a flying sword, but they can only use the sword. Fang Changjian meets the enemy and kills the demon. Just talk about the 9 children Qin Pingon brought home. If the Great Wall of Sword Qi fights for decades, Bai Shen will be like many predecessors of sword repair in history. Once they reach the middle 5 level, they will become only one fight sword repair. Even if Yao Xiaoyan has 3 natal flying swords, on the battlefield of the Great Wall of Sword Qi, apart from the family worship swordmaster, it is almost impossible to specially provide her with a guardian, because it is completely unnecessary. And the old Yuan Ying who could write poems inexplicably in the wine shop back then had a natal flying sword named Door God. There was no sharpness at all. If it was sacrificed on the battlefield, the sword light would be extremely slow, and he would be laughed at as an ant moving. So it can only be used to warm up the golden core primordial spirit, and often help other sword repairers to protect the way during retreat. Therefore there is the saying of Nana infant in the city and golden pill outside the city. Are they Jianxiu? Of course both. But does the sword repair of the Great Wall of Sword Qi recognize it? Some people may also recognize it and some may not. If the relationship between the two parties is not good, just say casually, have you been to the battlefield and how much has been achieved in the battle? How do people answer? The drunkards of the Great Wall of Sword Qi may not really like to drink, just don't drink and do what they can do. Lao Jianxiu, you did not notice that the second shopkeeper seemed to be in a bad mood, so he patted Qin Pingon on the shoulder and comforted, second shopkeeper, don't get sulking. It's not a bachelor's thing that is better than a bachelor's thing. Just get used to it. I'm old. You don't know Song's character. He is notoriously strict and doesn't talk about it everywhere. Qin Pingan cursed, I'm sad for your two tattered flying swords. Alas, I'm still anxious. Sure enough, scholars like to turn their faces and deny people. Old Jianxiu laughed heartily. Drinking wine from the second shopkeeper, being scolded by the second shopkeeper, and watching the punches of the second shopkeeper are all excellent. The young hidden official has not been in Feishing City for so many years. Whether he likes or dislikes the second treasurer, both sides are lonely. Is a letter from Feijin received after the winter of this year when Xiaoxue, Lu Jiqing invited Lu Jinglong to ask Jian Qiong Linzong together. The two parties made an appointment to meet in the territory of Kaiyonglinzong's subordinate sect. However, after Lu Jinglong left Pianran Peak, he left his disciple Baisho and went with his sword alone, so that Baisho could arrive at the ferry at the agreed time. So 3 days earlier than Baisho and Lu Jiqing, he quietly arrived at the ferry under the Malong sect. Lu Jinglong changed into a Taoist robe and stayed at a ferry house and called Luohuazhai. The night was heavy, and in the heavy rain, Lu Jinglong held an umbrella and took a thin young boy to show him the blindfold method. He held the umbrella with one hand and gently pressed the boy's arm with the other, and walked back to the inn together. The inn checked the identity of the young man's landscape genealogy, and after it was recorded, a new room was opened for the direct disciple of the wandering Taoist. Lu Jinglong gave the boy 2 ointments and pills in porcelain bottles, one for external application and one for internal use. I carefully explained how to take the medicine twice. When the boy said that he had remembered it, Lu Jinglong let the boy rest assured and healed himself. Next door. The young boy who had passed away trembled. Dare to ask the immortal master? Lu Jinglong smiled and said, Taihui Jianzong Lu Jinglong. Just as the thunder broke out outside the window, the tortured young man in the prison in the Malong school was shocked, his face full of disbelief, muttering to himself and repeatedly chanting Taihui Jianzong, sect master Lu Jianxian. Lu Jinglong bent down and picked up the oil paper umbrella leaning against the corner. Before leaving the house he asked, Yen Ting, would you hate those genealogists? The young man looked sad and pressed his lips tightly, wanting to nod, not daring, wanting to shake his head but not willing. Lu Jinglong said, repaying grievances with virtue. Why do you repay virtue? If you don't hate, there are ghosts. It's just a matter of revenge. Don't worry. In the lifeless eyes of the young man named Ran Teng, he finally recovered a little brilliance. He raised his head and looked at the great sword fairy who was different from his imagination. He boldly asked, is it really possible to take revenge? Lu Jinglong smiled and said, we must take revenge. Before Lu Jinglong closed the door gently, he smiled and explained, Yen Ting, you will be able to see Du soon. Santing suddenly realized but soon felt weird again and cautiously asked, Sect Master Lu, brother Du is, friends to you? Lu Jinglong shook his head and said, I didn't know Du before, but Du has a friend who is my friend. I believe I will become friends with Du. The teenager next door slept shallowly and was awakened twice by lightning and thunder. After sitting up, Yen Ting was sweating and his face was pale. Looking around, he was a little dazed, as if he was not sure if he was dreaming. How could Big Brother Du know someone like Lu Dejiangxian on the horizon, and how could Sect Master Lu personally rescue himself from the Malong sect? Lu Jinglong, who was sitting cross-legged on the bed, just glanced out the window. So soon the rain stopped and there was no more thunder in the sky. After, the big disciple Baisho almost entered the inn with Lu Jiqing's back and forth. Of course they all used pseudonyms and blindfolds. Taihui Jianzong, the contemporary Lord Lu Jinglong, and the white head of Pianranfing Peak. Golden Crow Palace Lu Jiqing, Dukhui Jianhu Rongchang, Sui Jingqing, Qinli Gao Yuqing. Du, the soldier monk of the Ghost Axe Palace, and the strange boy named Yen Teng. Lu Jinglong smiled and took the initiative to introduce himself to Du. Hello, my name is Lu Jinglong. Like Lu Jianxian and Rong Jianxian, I am a friend of Qin Pingan. Du swallowed and didn't know what to say except to thank him. After seeing the safe and sound young man, Baisho still had some means to admire the master. Look, when the surnamed Lu came out, everything was gone, but Baisho said in a low voice, Liu's surname, are you too careless about what you do? Even if you are the first to go and save people, it is really good, but you stay in the eyelids of the Malong school? The jianghu romance novel says the most dangerous thing. The place is the safest place. Do you really believe it? If you want me to say, your surname Lu is not as thorough as my brother Qin. Lu Jinglong just recounted the old with Lu Jiqing and Rong Chang, and ignored this unobtrusive big disciple. He had the ability to continue chatting like this when he arrived at Shindu Mountain. The depressed teenager saw Du, his eyes reddened, choked up and shouted, "Big brother Du, I met by chance at that time," and Yenting only felt that the other party had a bold personality, funny speech and met at first sight. Brother Du likes to call himself a good person. It was after the catastrophe that the young man knew his name was Du, a monk of the Ghost Axe Palace genealogy. The boy had always thought that Big Brother Du was just a mountain and wild repair who likes to walk the rivers and lakes. He didn't have a lot of money in his pocket and he couldn't mix in the mountains. Du stretched out his hand to grab the boy's arm, smiled and trembled. "It's fine if you don't die, it's fine if you are fine. I don't know why, seeing the sect Master Lu, it's just like staying with Senior Chin back then. Even if you go to the sword and the sea, even if you are in the tiger's lair in Longtan, it seems that you can still do your own way." Du lightly patted the boy's shoulder again, grinning with pain. Du hid the guilt in his eyes and said with a big grin, "Those with small arms and legs just can't withstand the wind and rain. Put me on it. He must be alive and kicking." After that, Lu Jinglong explained the reason with everyone and put it succinctly, except that in a prison of the Malong faction he successfully found this young man named Yenting, rescued it, and used a piece of his own work out. The secret talisman was made by Tao on behalf of Li Zheng, so the Malong sect has not yet noticed something wrong, otherwise it would have broken out. For Lu Jinglong, the so-called high security and numerous restrictions on mountains and rivers, in fact, are 3 illusory mountain and river obstacles, plus the guard of a Yuanying monk. Naturally, it is like entering no one's land. As for the old Yuanying, of course he is Fan Xiao's protector. He is the second guest of the Qianglin zone. This small business of the Malong sect will not allow an old Yuanying to waste time here. The two sides passed by, looking at each other's appearance. He was still an old on the mountain who was very particular about cleanliness. When he was drinking with Hong Yichui, he complained endlessly with 2 female monks of the Malong faction. And the double talisman Lu Jinglong left behind is certainly not an ordinary puppet talisman. Otherwise the old Yuanying is not a fool after all, and will inspect the cage every day, and he has long seen the footwork. Lu Jinglong smiled and said, "After I brought the vines out, I went to see Fan Xiao twice. It was more surprising. It was a golden pill who deliberately concealed his sword skills. However, it didn't take long to build the pill. I guess the original intention of this trip was relax. Fan Xiao is the descendant of Qianglin ancestor Shirtang, the proud disciple of Master Zhanglu. He is not yet Jiazi years old. He is an extremely young golden core earth immortal. He is rumored to be proficient in the talisman formation and refine the 5 elements of his life. Therefore, it is a talisman monk with unlimited prospects." Rong Chang joked, "It's still a sword repairer? This is not like Qiong Linzong's style. It seems that Qiong Linzong has high hopes for this person so that he can hide and tangle like this. Is it to prevent people from being asked about the sword?" Lu Jiqing breathed a sigh of relief, just like he was at the Golden Crow Palace, and he had told Du Yuming early about the life of the boy. Before I saw it, no one could tell. After all, Du was the first to find himself. Lu Jiqing and Lu Jinglong thanked him slightly, and then began to pull out his sleeves. What did he do? He must be looking for wine. Lu Jinglong hurriedly reached out and held Lu Jiqing's arm, smiled and said, "Even if I don't make a move, you will be in time because..." Lu Jinglong stopped speaking, turned his head and asked the boy, "Can you say it?" The young man smiled brightly. Mr. Lu said casually, "It's not something to hide. Kantang still thinks it is better to call sect Master Lu as Mr. Lu. Mr. Lu is very knowledgeable. During these 2 days, there is almost nothing that Mr. Lu doesn't know about." Lu Jinglong went on to say, "Lanting was born in Yanxi. In history there have been many vines since ancient times. It is most suitable for paper making. It was used as official paper for the official documents of several countries around it. It is durable and will not be wormed for 100 years, especially the kind. The golden version of paper is used by immortals on the mountain to write letters, but 200 years ago the water level of Yanxi was suddenly shallow and almost dried up, and the ancient vines on both sides of the bank gradually withered. Due to the exhaustion of raw materials, the paper was extinct for many years. The local immortal master was limited by his realm and couldn't find out the reason, so he lost this source of wealth. In fact, this is because Yenting gained a part of the world and was invisible, sheltered by the local air transport. Therefore, during the refining period the mountains and rivers were clean. Similar to the monk's retreat, the mountain is naturally closed so as not to attract covetousness. When the vines are successfully refined, the land will naturally restore the original landscape, and the ancient vines will become more luxuriant compared to the past. This is a kind of avenue feeding. The vines are simple in temperament and do not want to leave immediately. The heart is good. In the end, the monks of the Malong faction were eyeing them because they found that cutting the vine to make paper, if you add a few flavors of immortal woods and plants, the paper texture is excellent. Maybe it can be sold in Ijo Shinfu. So the vine was taken by the Malong Pai Pai, regarded it as a money-making tree and used it to claim credit for Fan Xiao. This is why Yen Teng had such a catastrophe and why Fan Xiao was bound to win, and at the same time he did not hesitate to spend a lot of time. He secretly left the life of Yen Teng, that is waiting for Yen Teng to lower his head and be soft. Only because Yen Teng was in jail, he made Na Fan Xiao swear that he would spare Diyu in Ghost Axe Palace before he was willing to return to Yen River. Fan Xiao felt that this was too embarrassing and even unwilling. Just pretend to swear an oath to deceive Yen Teng, thinking that as long as you catch Diyu, you will be able to get it right once and for all. I couldn't help but Yen Teng's non-cooperation. At the Ghost Axe Palace, I have let a sword repair of our Taihui sword sect wait. Just wait for Brother Kaiyang Linzong to go to the teacher to inquire about the crime. Lu Jinglong said in a very detailed manner. But no one thinks that Sovereign Lu said it too much. Chen Li silently remembered the Qianglin genealogy monk named Fan Xiao. He, the half-hundred-year-old golden core swordsman, was very genius. After all, it was about 30 years later than himself for the formation of alchemy. Good people often have no reason to do good things, but smart people do bad things with a clear purpose and a clear context. Chen Li looked at the boy and chuckled softly. Yenting, according to the local county chronicles on your side, I heard that there is a long-lost Bing Bing paper in the paper, which has a better material than the gold plate. Can I order 100 rice paper with you? The young man looked shy and said, as much as you want. Gao Yuqing asked in a low voice, Chen Li, how do you know this? Chen Li squinted his eyes. What do you think? Gao Yuqing smiled. It was because he asked a silly question. Chen Li cannot be blamed for being impatient. In addition to practicing, Chen Li has been in Fuping Jianghu over the past few years, not to mention the archives of the sect, but also specially asked the seniors and sisters to help collect and gather the Shanshui Dibao and the official history archives of the Luzhou and Beiju, and local counties. After practicing sword, I read a book. Chen and Li didn't feel boring either, and he lived as an old man in cultivating. More than 20 sword fairy embryos who stayed in World to practice. Xuanhuan, who is the best apprentice in the world for our 2 apprentices, has to admit one thing. If you really want to talk about aptitude, talent, temperament, chance and put it together, even if Qin Li is in the Great Wall of Jianxi, Qishou and Pang Yuanji afterwards, among the youngest generation of sword repairers at the Great Wall of Jianxi, they also deserve the word leadership. So Qin Li didn't stay in the Great Wall of Jianxi, and never followed Feishing City to a new world. For today's Feishing City, it is no small regret. Even today they are often mentioned by old people, and their words are full of melancholy. Otherwise, Qin Li will definitely have a place in the Patriarch Hall of Feishingcheng. It's just that Qin and Li followed Li Kai to the Beiju Luzhou, which is not bad. The saber is obscure, once the relic of the owner of a private house of the Sword Fairy, and the previous owner happened to be a loose repair sword fairy from Luzhou and Beiju. As for Qin Li's real name Feijin Liao Mei, it is magical and mysterious, and the Summer Palace commented it as Yi Shang rank. It is said that this is because the Hermit Master deliberately lowered the rank. It's a pity that I didn't go to the summer residence and was fascinated by the young hermit. Otherwise, Qin Li's Little Hermit nickname would have been changed to a veritable name. Rong Chang asked, then we will leave for Kaiyang Linzong? Qin Li said, Brother Rong, we will stay for a day or 2 and then leave later. Otherwise we are too crowded and too conspicuous. Anyway, Kaiyanglinzong's Patriarch Hall will not run long. Diu is almost numb. Fuck it. Good seniors, how do you know so many mountain friends? Because he was close to the fairy, he realized that this gentle and cheerful senior brother Rong turned out to be a great disciple of Li Kai Jianxian in Dukping Jianhu. Probably I am the least promising one among the friends Chen Jianxian knows? Don't need to be general, it must be. Two-sleeved breeze Kaiyanglinzong, the world is invincible. The Qianglin school of Luzhou and Beiju is famous for the world, and it is also known as the sect with the head of the sect, the most frequently asked swords. In history there were no less than 100 questions about swords. But many so-called questioning swords, that is, a sword light was lit up from afar, and they smashed on the Kaiyanglinzong's landscape formation. Only 9 times hit the Ancestor Hall, of which 3 times, the Ancestor Hall was really broken, and there was the sword fairy Jiue of the Yuanqi mountain in the past. Qianglin has always stood firm. It's no wonder Lu Yu, the lord of the Qianglin sect, has the confidence and the sword repair of one continent to say that I want to fight one continent one by one. The sword fairy is floating cloud to me. As for whether Lu Ying said it himself, or someone did it to help Sect Master Lu speak his heart, does it matter? Unimportant. Anyway, it is rumored that even our highly respected real fire dragon, who walked on the Baiquan mountain in the early years, had to nod his beard and sincerely praised him as so strong. Qiong Linzong is rich. Wealthy is really rich. Just to say that there are often monks enacting life and death conditions in the mountain, and there is a Baiquan mountain near the water in the first month. It is most suitable for monks to watch the battle. It is as big as a small country mountain. Qiong Linzong not only bought the entire mountain but also there. More than 1,000 Xianjidong mansions were opened, renting but not selling, a bit similar to Yuguazong's cloud cave blessed land, with billowing wealth, fine water flowing, and a pen of immortal money, all fell into Qiong Linzong's pocket. Pens of immortal money are inconspicuous, but they can be accumulated together to be extremely impressive, and the more long-term rent, the more expensive the price. Basically, there will be 1 or 2 private houses on the Baiquan mountain for the famous martial arts and monks in Luzhou and Beiju. Many Yamazawa Naxiu even more so. Regardless of the name and no need to report the origin and roots with Qiong Linzong, just a pseudonym and a bag of enough fairy money, you can get 2 jade medals for climbing and opening the door. Qiong Linzong is stationed as a monk, who only recognizes jade tiles but not people. In addition to the mirror flowers over there, it has been in business for thousands of years, making 100 spring mountains, the aura of the heavens and the earth, and the strong protection of the mountains can already be compared to the 5 mountains of a continent. In addition, I was worried that being asked about the sword would cut off the way to make money. Some of the best feng shui treasures that occupies the best land and are most suitable for cultivation were given to some old immortal masters free of charge by the Qiongling sect. Therefore there will be several old immortal masters sitting on the mountain all year round. At the mansion, they only need to help block those questioning swords without warning during the cultivation period, which may be 10 years at most 20 years. Qiongling Zong Lulu refers to Shenfeng Yuanling Temple, Erlang Temple Yuanyang. These 3 jade realms in Luzhou and Northju can play a fairy from Middle-earth God continent at will. This is something recognized by one continent. It is said that Jiang Shangzhen first proposed it, and it spread all over Beiju Luzhou at once, and Jianghu thief is rare to say something. Lu Jinglong said, "As for the sword, you don't need too many people, but the quality is clean, the sword is fair and im enough. You guys just stay at the bronze crossing of Qiong Linzong and don't have to follow us to climb the mountain." The white head rolled his eyes and said, "If you dislike our low realm, just say it straight." Lu Jiqing had already started drinking with Rong Chong. Lu Jinglong turned a blind eye to him. Maybe he couldn't look down on the amount of drinks of the two. Lu Sect Master's drinking volume is so bottomless, not to mention the current Beiju Luzhou, which is on the side of the Great Wall of Jianqi. No one knows who does not know. In this matter, the Golden Crow Palace Lu Jiqing, the Duckweed Sword Lake Li Kai, the old Pif Wang Fulu, and the earliest Su Xingjiu from Yunshengcheng, everyone has a share and has a credit. As for the culprit, he is now busy preparing for the establishment of the next sect in Tonggishao. Qinli hesitated. Lu Jinglong smiled and asked, "Qinli, what are your suggestions?" Qinli smiled shyly, "Then I will just say a few words." Qinli waved his sleeves, the water mist was hazy, and finally there appeared a geomancy map of the Qiongling ancestral boundary, pointing to the halfway point of Zushan Mountain. "Sect Master Lu, I just have a guess, this Qiongling ancestral mountain is half of it. The spring on the mountainside rises up from the pavilion, I think it is a maze. The white snake path adjacent to the Patriarch's Hall is also a landscape formation. Therefore, the sword repairmen from other towns in the past and the swordsmen seem to have broken the mountain and water prohibition. Even if the sword light successfully landed on the Patriarch Hall, and eventually a sword smashed the Patriarch Hall, it was all in vain. Qiong Linzong has only come to the paper-pappled landscape formation, the Patriarch Hall with flowing water. Often within 2 months, Qiong Linzong will be able to rebuild a brand new Patriarch Hall. In my opinion, it is not an outside rumor. Qiong Linzong is rich in wealth and he is only familiar with it. Of course, Qiong Linzong certainly does not lack the money, it can be possible, but this kind of activity is not in line with the personality of the Qiong Linzong monk, so it is very likely that the Patriarch in the eyes of outsiders Tang is just a clever way of blindfolding. The real body is a snail shell dojo, so what the sword light shatters is just an empty shell. So Sect Master Lu, if you just want to save face in this question of swords, it's a big deal, just like the previous sword repairs, standing near the top of the mountain and handing out a few swords to the Qiongling Zongzu mountain from a distance. It is also considered to have made Qiong Linzong face disgraced. But if you want to ask the sword to be practical, not only do you have to climb the mountain past the Xuanhuan pavilion, but also be careful of the mountains and rivers and then walk on the white snake path. The same is true. Like my master said, sneaking into the vicinity of the patriarch's hall and trying to be unconscious of it is actually very difficult. Lu Jinglong smiled and nodded. He is indeed a hidden official of the Great Wall of Jianghu. Was scored 7 or 8 points by Qin Li. It's hard to draw these conclusions based on a geomancy map pieced together everywhere. Look at the big disciple who was busy drinking secretly. Lu Jinglong was a little helpless. He liked drinking so much. When he arrived at Xindu Mountain he would have a good drink with someone. Gao Yuqing listened attentively. Although Qin Li has never had a good face on her side, but the habit is just fine. Master said Qin Li is a cold-hearted face. Du was greatly admired when he heard it. This little sword fairy, looking at his young age, is very sophisticated in jianghu experience. Qin Li asked tentatively, Sect Master Lu, can I secretly ask Fan Xiao on the sword without my registration number? Lu Jinglong nodded and said, after you and Fan Xiao Wenjian, I can let this news not reach Xianglingzong in the near future. In somebody's words, you can ask the sword if you don't ask. Qin Li immediately understood and smiled and said, my generation of sword repairers, ask first before talking. Lu Jinglong reminded, the premise is that you can run after the fight, and it's best to try to avoid showing signs. By the way, don't kill, there will be opportunities in the future. Qin Li Shen said, understood. Lu Jinglong suddenly smiled and asked, Qin Li, if I remember correctly, this is your first time in Howren World to ask the sword. Wouldn't you feel awkward to choose to ask the sword with Fan Xiao? Qin Li shook his head and said, what's so awkward about this? As long as I'm not above the opponent's realm, I don't want to ask who the sword is. We hidden officials can all wear women's dresses and go to the battlefield to fight. They are graceful, gorgeous, and squeaky without feeling the slightest awkwardness. When he thought of this kind of thing, Qin Li only felt that the hidden officer was really a high mountain. It would be hard to reach in this life. I just hope that I can vaguely see the back of the hidden officer in the green shirt while climbing. Qin Li suddenly closed his eyes and sacrificed his flying sword, but only swam to a nearby Benminkyo acupoint, and Qin Li's mustard seed was immersed in it. After a while, Qin Li opened his eyes and finished asking the sword. Natal flying sword, May, when you wake up, it is, when you sleep, it is sleepy. Qin Li didn't make a ruthless move, but just poked a few small holes in that Fan Xiao. Because his refinement of this natal flying sword is far from being a great achievement. The following night, Fan Xiao suffered another questioning sword. Is all dazzled, and there is a sword repairman with a face and an uncertain body. He appears in front of him without warning, and then pokes him a few more swords. Fan Xiao has no power to fight back. And the guardian of the old Yuaning, he couldn't even see the sword repairman. Not to mention Fan Xiao, even the old Yuaning was scared to death. Which sword fairy of the upper fifth realm who didn't deal with Xianglingzong, was so embarrassed that he was so lingering and entangled with a golden core junior. As for the two sending flying swords sent from Malong sect to Xianglingzong, they all quietly ran into Lu Jinglong's sleeve, and they will be sent to Xianglingzong's mountain a little later. After, a group of people set off to Xianglingzong. Qin Li and the others stayed at Tongqian Ferry. Lu Jinglong and 3 people go to Xianglingzong's mountain. Those who travel outside the country need to stop at the Xuanhuan pavilion halfway up the mountain. But in fact, climbing is learning. Because Lu Jiqing and Rong Chang were surprised to find that in the hazy landscape of the blurred vision, there seemed to be 3 more people walking on the road beside them, and the 3 of them went further and further away from self. What a Xianglingzong, he almost smashed 2 ancestral mountains that were extremely close to reality and illusion. In the true ancestral mountain climbing divine way, Lu Jinglong took the lead to open the way with a talisman in his hand, and every step is a symbol. Lu Jiqing and Rong Chang are like walking in a talisman formation. Lu Jinglong just stopped for a moment in the Yongquan pavilion and the White Snake Trail, and soon continued to walk, with the 2 behind him. The group soon came outside the Patriarch's hall. Rong Chang couldn't help but ask in his heart, is this here? Lu Jinglong smiled and said, it's okay to not have a heartfelt voice, brother. Xianglingzong can't hear it. Lu Jiqing asked a digression. Lu Jinglong, you tell me the truth, you are facing an enemy other than Jian Xiu, how many swords do you need to hand out? As a result, Lu Jinglong smiled and said, it's hard to say, and I haven't beaten an immortal. Lu Jiqing choked for a while. Lu Jinglong said, this time I ask the sword, it is not advisable to go too far because Qin Pingon will definitely visit Xianglingzong next time he travels to Luzhou and Beiju. He has a personal matter to talk about. So we finished this patriarch hall. Just retreat and stop questioning the sword with brother Kyang Linzong. Lu Ji smiled and said, "It's just such a patriarch hall, let us chop in the same place. What is the difference between us and the woodcutter chopping wood, also considered as a questioning sword?" Lu Jinglong said helplessly, "Blame me?" Rong Chang laughed loudly. Lu Jianxian was hypocritical. "I didn't care, I immediately sacrificed my life-flying sword, and hacked at the patriarch hall." Lu Jiqing had to keep up. Lu Jinglong did not pass the sword, but after one hand was negative, he raised one hand and pointed, leaving a talisman and then pointing to the ground, finally leaving 2 talisman and 2 sentences. "There is a 3 feet above the head. Turn around and ask Jen again. 3 swords repair the original road back." Only one patriarch hall, which was completely reduced to ruins, remained. Lu Jinglong asked Lu Jiqing and Rong Chang to stop. The next moment they moved, they overlapped with the 3 people in Quanyong Pavilion. Many monks gathered here to look at the scenery. Then there was a thunderous, thrilling, loud sound like thunder in the ears, but the monks looked around but they didn't know what they were inside. The entire Cheonglin Zongzu mountain and the neighboring peaks were clearly indistinguishable. Where did it come from? What's happening? Lu Jinglong and the 3 people were mixed in the mountain road and went down the mountain. Stayed at Tongqiandu for 2 days, and then they took a leisurely ferry ride to Jidu in the middle of the city. After visiting the capital of the Dayuan dynasty and the Shuilong cave, they parted ways. Lu Jinglong took his disciple Baisho and boarded the Fengyuan ferry. Diyu and Yenteng temporarily followed Rong Chang and the others to the Duckweed Sword Lake. Lu Jiqing was going to travel along that dadu all the way. On the ferry, Baisho and Baixian are acquaintances. Lu Jinglong found the little girl named Chai Wu according to Chen Ping's instructions in the letter, took out 2 talisman papers, put them on the table and let Chai Wu learn to draw talisman by himself. Chai Wu painted meticulously, anyway he painted the scoop according to the gourd. Baixian laughed. "This grassy girl, what about ghost paintings?" Millet Grain sat aside and applauded Chai Wu gently. Lu Jinglong glanced at a talisman with aura, knowing it in his mind, and asked with a smile, "Chai Wu, do you want to learn to draw talisman? As long as you don't delay your main practice, you will be more skilled and not crush your body." Chai Wu nodded and said, "If Sect Master Lu is willing to teach, of course I am willing to learn, but my spiritual qualifications are not very good." Lu Jinglong couldn't help asking, "Why do you feel that your cultivating aptitude is not very good?" Chai Wu was a little embarrassed, shook his head and stopped talking. Chen Shanzhu personally taught twice before, and it is not rare to find himself in the future, and only let Mr. Xiao Mo do it for him. "It's okay. I eat and drink on the ferry. A caddy of wine a day is the ferry house wine that can only be drunk by the gods on the mountain. The taste is not so much like drinking a knife compared to the inferior wine at the wine shop under the mountain. But the aftertaste is long, so you have to talk about your conscience and you have to recite the Lord Qinshan. Furthermore, don't look at Zhou Hufa, who is usually confused. He is smart and has a good memory. Looping up and down the mountain, inside and out, the right guardian remembers everything and knows everything." So what Zhou Mili knew was basically what Chen Shanzhu knew. The wind and kite ferry goes all the way across the sea to the south and is about to enter the land of Aquarius. At night, Lu Jinglong and me were standing on the bow of the ship, and Xiaomi Li did not continue to patrol the night, worrying about disturbing you, me and Mr. Lu talking about major issues. In my house, lying on the table, holding my fingers for a few days. When can I pass Luapa Mountain, and when will I reach Shindu Mountain? After me you left, Lu Jinglong stood alone beside the railing. Thinking of something, Chen Pingan repeatedly urged in the letter. The key is that the secret letter also set up an exclusive door restriction that Lu Jinglong taught Chen Pingan. In the second letter, Lu Jinglong was reminded that he must sneak into the fairyland and don't publicize it. If possible, in the Patriarch, don't mention it inside the hall. Especially be careful of the great sword Immortal by Chang in the north. It's not that you can't believe in the sword repair of Taihui Jianzong, but that the speaker has no intention and the listener has the heart. Your Lu Jinglong's natal flying sword is really special. In the future, waiting for you to retreat next time, trying to ascend to the Ascension realm, I will come to Taihui Jianzong to help you guard the pass. If you are a native swordsman of the Great Wall of Sword Qi, you must be the xianxia rank on the brochure of the Summer Palace. And the 2 natal flying swords of Chen Pingan, the Caged Bird and Jing Diyue, are the sub-A and the middle. Of course, the rank of the sword repair flying sword can be improved, and it is not static. Lu Jinglong smiled knowingly, muttering to himself, "It's really more mother-in-law than me." the magical powers of his flying sword, rules. Like now where Lu Jinglong's eyes are, there are rules. When the Fengyuan ferry passed by over the Changchun Palace ferry, Lu Jinglong quietly disembarked with his sword midway, and was about to go to Dali capital. At a ferry house inn, I met the Han Zhoujin Lu Jinglong's self-registered number. As a result, Han Zhoujin caught sect master Lu by surprise. Lu Jinglong had to explain to her repeatedly that I don't drink. At the end of the ferry, I found Lu Jianxian, who had caught up with Feng Kite and boarded the ship again. He was murderous and he wanted to ask people about the sword. You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.